Chapter 6386. Zhang Wenqing, you better remember what you said. When we go back, I'll ask my grandfather to kick you out. Guo Xiaojie was also enraged. These few pieces of trash actually dared to challenge him today? You don't have to kick me out. I'm not going back anyway. Zhang Wenqing's face was full of resentment. God is really unfair. I don't want my life today. You're going to die here anyway. Chu Huan, the two of you can't be like him. Guo Xiaojie also realized that his current situation was very bad. Once everyone chose to give up, he would definitely lose his life here. As long as the two of you can help me block these guys, I promise to promote you to inner sect disciples when we go back. If they had heard Guo Xiaojie's words before, Chu Huan would have done so even if it meant risking their lives. However, after experiencing all this, how could they not see that all this was just an excuse from Guo Xiaojie? Guo Xiaojie, you don't have to say these things. We've already seen through it. Chu Huan's face was cold. He didn't know what he had been doing all day. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at Guo Xiaojie, who had been abandoned in the blink of an eye, and were a little surprised. This change was really fast. How hateful is Guo Xiaojie? No one is willing to help him now. Xiao Hei's eyes were full of ridicule. This guy deserved to be in such a situation. Shangguan Yingying frowned. Maybe these guys realized that they're not as strong as us, so they changed their minds at this moment. It's just for a way to survive. Everyone nodded slightly. This kind of situation happened a lot in the face of a great disaster. However, Guo Xiaojie was really too annoying. Di Beichen's figure flashed and directly attacked Guo Xiaojie. This guy was really scum. Bang! Two fists collided. Guo Xiaojie took a few steps back. After realizing that Chu Huan and the other two were really not going to attack, he didn't dare to stay any longer. He turned around and flew back quickly. This place wasn't far from the immortal region. As long as they escaped from this area, they would definitely bring the people from the sect to kill all these people. Guo Xiaojie is the grandson of an elder of the Xianqing sect. Once he escapes, I'm afraid it will be very troublesome, Chu Huan suddenly said. Hearing that, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others took a glance at Chu Huan. However, they did not say anything. From the conversation between Guo Xiaojie and the others, they had a rough idea of his identity. This indeed made them apprehensive. No matter how weak Guo Xiaojie's strength was, since his grandfather was an elder of the sect, his strength was definitely not weak. In that case, they had to eliminate the source of the problem. They absolutely couldn't leave behind any future troubles. Vigorous essence energy exploded. Di Beichen pushed his speed to the limit and caught up with Guo Xiaojie's pace. Let me tell you, my grandfather is an elder of the Xianqing sect. If you dare to kill me, my grandfather will definitely kill all of you. There was a hint of panic in Guo Xiaojie's voice. However, as long as you let me go, I can pretend that nothing happened today. Hearing this, Di Beichen raised his eyebrows. If that's the case, then I'll have to kill him. Only a fool would believe such words. Seeing that Di Beichen attacked without even thinking, Guo Xiaojie could only use all his skills to deal with it. Chapter 6387. Xiaofeng, don't we need to go ahead and take a look? Bailey Yunyan looked at Di Xiaofeng, who was guarding Chu Huan and the other two, with a trace of worry in her eyes. Di Xiaofeng smiled faintly. Don't worry. That guy's foundation is unstable. Although he's in the Radiant Sun realm, he's no match for Beichen and the others. Besides, Beichen isn't the only one who went. He should be back soon. Bailey Yunyan nodded. You're right. Beichen and Hongzhuang have always been very strong. Di Xiaofeng turned to look at Xiao Xuanzi and Xiao Hua. He frowned slightly. Compared to Beichen, he was more worried about Xiao Hua and Xiao Xuanzi. After a short period of bandaging, Xiao Xuanzi's wound had split open again. The injury on his arm was very serious, but he was still hugging Xiao Hua. Even if he wanted to say something, he couldn't open his mouth when he saw the two of them like this. Noticing Di Xiaofeng's gaze, Bailey Yunyan also turned her gaze. Little Xuanzi just stared blankly at Little Flower's appearance. His head was clearly lowered, so his expression couldn't be seen, but Bailey Yunyan felt a deep sadness. Xiao Xuanzi had always been very cheerful, but they had never seen him like this before. There was an unprecedented feeling of unfamiliarity. Bailey Yunyan inexplicably wanted to break this sad atmosphere, because she felt that this wasn't suitable for Xiao Xuanzi. However, she couldn't move her feet, because she didn't know what she could say. Di Xiaofeng could understand Xiao Xuanzi's feelings. The deeper his feelings for Xiao Hua, the more intense the pain of not being able to protect the woman he loved the most. This kind of emotion couldn't be changed with just a few words. It depended on his own thoughts. Not long after, Di Beichen and the others returned. After realizing that Gua Xiaojie wasn't there, Bailey Yunyan couldn't help but ask curiously, "Where's Gua Xiaojie? Has it been resolved?" Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. "It's settled." As she spoke, she turned her head to look at Xiao Xuanzi. "I think Beichen has already used the most suitable method to punish Gua Xiaojie. However, if you have any ideas, you can carry them out." The things that Gua Xiaojie, this kind of scum, had done were really heinous. Therefore, when it came to punishing him, there was no mercy at all. Once Gua Xiaojie dies, the elders will immediately find out. Chu Huan suddenly said, "Elder knows that we came to the abandoned immortal forest today. I advise you to leave this place immediately. Otherwise, once Elder comes, it will be a disaster." "He's not dead," Di Beichen said coldly. "Xiao Xuanzi, I've made Gua Xiaojie fall into an illusion. He will be in endless pain. With his strength, he won't die in a short time. What do you think?" As Di Beichen's voice fell, Xiren and the others also understood. This kind of punishment was scarier than death. For a guy like Gua Xiaojie, he must have done countless bad things in the past. Once he fell into an illusion, it would be like a nightmare that would trap him, and he would be unable to extricate himself. In addition, this guy wasn't a strong-willed person. Under such torture, it wouldn't take long for him to completely go crazy. "Beichen, this method of yours is really powerful." Chapter 6388. When Chu Huan and the others heard Di Beichen's words, they were confused. They didn't understand what they were talking about. An illusory realm was not something that could be easily created. One moment, it was a small escape talisman, and the next moment, it was an illusion. Even the experts of the immortal region weren't good at these things. But when they came out of their mouths, it was as if it was a simple matter. They couldn't believe it. But the other party didn't have the need to boast in front of them. So everything became more meaningful. Xiao Xuanzi raised his head and looked at Di Beichen. He said, "I believe you." He believed that his master wouldn't let Gua Xiaojie go so easily. Now what he wanted the most was to see Xiao Hua get better quickly. "Then what should we do with these three guys?" Xiren looked at Chu Huan and the others. These three were Gua Xiaojie's lackeys. Although they changed their stance at the last moment, no one knew if it was really a change, or if they were forced to do so. These guys also forced Xiao Xuanzi and Xiao Hua. "In my opinion, we should just kill them. It'll be neat and tidy," Sheng Guanying said. Zhongli Mu had been staring at these three guys, not giving them any chance to escape. If they showed any signs of resisting, he would immediately take care of them. Linger nodded slightly. The other party had lost their fighting spirit, and didn't have the mood to continue fighting. Although their cultivation wasn't as good as the other party's strength wasn't really that strong. In fact, if Di Beichen and Bailey Hongzhuang broke through to the Radiant Sun realm, even if the other party had more people, it would be difficult to control them. "I don't understand." Zhongli Mu was puzzled. "Didn't they say that cultivators who can enter the immortal region are all quite strong? Other than those who were born in the immortal region, cultivators who relied on their own strength to ascend are all very strong. However, these guys are all in the Radiant Sun realm, but their combat strength is much weaker than the people I met before. Even Nalan Fu, who captured them and sent them to the spirit-devouring mine, was much stronger than these guys. I don't understand this either." Bai Lianche shrugged. If all the Radiant Sun stage cultivators in the celestial realm were this strong, then it wouldn't be long before they set off for the realm of chaos. Chu Huan and the other two had ugly expressions on their faces as they listened to the other party's blatant conversation. Most importantly, the other party wasn't deliberately taunting them when he said those words. Instead, he was seriously thinking about it, which made it even more awkward. Our original strength was indeed not weak, but ever since we joined the Enchanting sect, we became Guoxiaojia's followers. Being ordered around by him every day to do some messy things, not only did my strength not improve during this period of time, on the contrary, my combat strength has become worse. Chu Huan sighed. Originally, he had never thought about this problem. He only felt that he still had a long life ahead of him. Even if he wasted 2 years, it wouldn't be a big deal. However, he didn't realize that cultivation was like sailing against the current. If he didn't advance, he would fall back. Only on the brink of death did he finally understand this problem. What was the use of all this? You're interesting. You like answering questions so much? Di Xiaofeng looked at Chu Huan with interest. If it was an ordinary person, they wouldn't want to answer any questions at all. Chu Huan looked up with a calm expression. I only ask that you give me a quick death. Chapter 6389. Xiaohei's expression was icy cold. When it thought of the previous scene, it felt its hair stand on end. It was extremely furious. I suggested it, but it was useless. At this moment, Xiao Xuanzi glanced at Chu Huan and said, they were also controlled by Guoxiaojia. Forget it. He was very clear about the previous situation. From the beginning to the end, it was only Guoxiaojia's idea. Hearing Xiao Xuanzi's words, a trace of confusion appeared in everyone's eyes. They only felt that this was really not in line with his style. After such a thing happened, only by killing the other party could they truly vent their anger. Chu Huan and the other two were a little surprised. They were already prepared to die, but they did not expect Xiao Xuanzi to say such a thing. Di Beichen took a deep look at Xiao Xuanzi. As the master, he had a certain understanding of Xiao Xuanzi's character. It seemed that today's matter had affected him greatly. Since Xiao Xuanzi has already decided, you can leave. If we find such a thing in the future, we will not let you off easily. Chu Huan and the other two were a little stunned. They only felt that the other party was deliberately playing with them. In the next moment they bowed deeply, their faces full of shame. We are really sorry. We will definitely not do such a thing in the future, and we will not return to the Enchanting sect. If we say half a word about what happened today, we will definitely die a horrible death, Chu Huan said with a serious expression. Di Beichen ignored them and left with Xiao Xuanzi and Xiao Hua. Chu Huan and the other two stood on the spot until the other party left. The three of them had a guilty expression on their faces. Chu Huan, what should we do now? Zhang Wenqing was at a loss. They had worked hard for so many years, and finally found a place to stay in the celestial region. Now they definitely could not return to the Enchanting sect. Something had happened to Guoxiaojia. If they returned, only death would await them. We can only return to the celestial region, through the chaotic celestial region. If we leave from here, we will definitely be discovered. At that time, we will not be able to protect our lives. Although the chaotic celestial region is very dangerous, there is still a chance of survival. Chu Huan's eyes were once again filled with determination and faith. We have to find our original selves. What's the point of cowering all day? You're right, it's better for those people to be free and unfettered in the abandoned immortal forest. Even if we can't do it, we can just stay in the abandoned immortal forest. Zhang Wenqing had also gotten over it. In the past, he had always thought that the abandoned immortal forest was filled with useless trash. Today, he realized that he had been a frog in a well. There were many geniuses here. After rushing back to their residence, Bai Lianche said, "Those guys didn't follow us. It seems that they are truly repentant. They actually have no other choice. Going back is a dead end," Bailey Hongzhuang said. When Xiren sighed, "Right now, I feel that this immortal domain is actually quite difficult to survive in. It would be better for us to learn more skills before we go out and explore. Otherwise, if we end up like them, that would really be..." "Hongzhuang, how's Little Blossom?" Bailey Hongzhuang fed Little Blossom a pill and said, "Little Blossom's injuries are very serious, but most of them are external injuries. Her foundation hasn't been harmed. However, the power of these chains is a bit strange. They absorbed Little Blossom's essence. In addition to the previous explosion, Little Blossom also suffered internal injuries. Chapter 6390. Everyone nodded. Bailey Hongzhuang had already explained the general situation. Although the injury was serious, as long as she was still alive, she would be able to recover in a short time. Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes turned slightly, and she looked at Xiao Xuanzi on the side. His wound was still bleeding, but his eyes were always on Xiaohua's body. His eyes contained too much pain and worry. I'll deal with Xiaohua's injury. Di Beichen, you help Xiao Xuanzi. Di Beichen's medical skills were still lacking compared to Hongzhuang's, but he could already deal with ordinary injuries skillfully. After all, his master was different, so his learning speed was naturally much faster. Big brother, how are your injuries? Di Beichen looked at Di Xiaofeng and the others. In the previous fight, everyone was injured. It's fine. Di Xiaofeng waved his hand. These injuries will be fine after taking some medicine. Di Beichen nodded slightly. Usually, everyone was often injured when they were cultivating. Everyone had pills on them. Ordinary injuries could be healed quickly after taking the pills. Xiao Xuanzi, Hongzhuang will take care of Xiaohua here. You go back to your room and rest first. Di Beichen said. Xiao Xuanzi looked at Xiaohua and said, I want to wait here for her to wake up. Xiaohua's essence is damaged. She won't wake up for a while. I'm afraid it'll be tomorrow when she wakes up. Your injury is also very serious. If you don't deal with it properly, don't tell me you don't want your arm anymore? Di Beichen frowned and said in a deep voice. Don't worry. Xiaohua will be fine with me here. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled, and her face was full of confidence. I promise you that when you wake up tomorrow, you'll see Xiaohua safe and sound. Facing everyone's gaze, Xiao Xuanzi was a little unwilling, but he still nodded. After Xiao Xuanzi and the other men left, Bailey Hongzhuang took off Xiaohua's clothes and dealt with her wound. Bailey Yunyan and Shengguan couldn't help but feel sorry for him. The wound that was dripping with blood was a ghastly sight. The girl's perfectly fine skin had turned into such a state. Just by looking at it, one could imagine how painful it was. That Guoxiaojie is really abnormal. The imperial wind horse elephant's body isn't outstanding among demonic beasts, but it's not like a human that can easily break through it. Little Blossom's injuries are so serious. It's obvious what kind of torture she went through before we arrived. Bailey Union's eyes were filled with reluctance. Now that she thought about it, she felt that she should have ruthlessly stabbed him with a knife. The more I think about it, the angrier I get. Shengguan Yingying looked indignant. Hongzhuang, you just used an illusion on him, and didn't let him suffer any physical pain. Looking at Shengguan Yingying's agitated look, Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head and said, Xiao Xuanzi and Xiaohua have suffered so much. How can Beichen let them go so easily? Don't worry, Beichen has already done what you want to do. Once she said that, Shengguan Yingying finally showed a relieved expression. Now that you said that, I'm relieved. Otherwise, when I think of that guy's appearance, I can't wait to rush over and stab him twice. Bailey Hongzhuang carefully dealt with Xiaohua's wound. Even with the effect of pills, these injuries still needed half a month to recover. Fortunately, they arrived in time today. Otherwise, they would have to suffer for the rest of their lives. Chapter 6391. Little Xuanzi's taste is really good. Little Blossom is very beautiful after transforming into a human. Shengguan Yingying looked at Little Blossom's appearance. Previously, the situation was very dangerous, so she didn't have the chance to look carefully. Now that they stopped, she finally saw Little Blossom's true appearance. She was really a beauty. Actually, Little Blossom should also be good-looking among the imperial wind horse elephants. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows. She had seen a few imperial wind horse elephants before, but they weren't as good-looking as Little Blossom. Shengguan Yingying was a bit surprised. You can even see that. Different races, but I think they all look the same. Speaking of which, Guoxiaojie didn't go back today. That Xianqing sect's elder should be coming to the abandoned immortal forest to look for him. When the time comes, will he find us? Bailey Union's face was filled with worry. Just from Chu Huan and the others' description, She could tell that the elder wasn't someone easy to deal with. Once he knew that his beloved grandson had turned into a fool, he would definitely fly into a rage. We've already done our best to clean up the traces. In addition, Gua Xiaojie has already turned into a fool. What can't we get from him? Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes revealed a pondering look. She wasn't very clear about the methods of the Immortal Region's cultivators, but they had indeed done everything they could. If they could still find them in this situation, then even if Gua Xiaojie died, the other party would definitely be able to find them. Granny and the others don't know when they will come back. We have to be prepared. The other party could appear at any time. Bailey Hongzhuang's face was serious. To be able to become an elder of a sect, his strength was definitely not simple. The Immortal Region's experts had many methods. They couldn't be sure if the other party really had the ability to know everything. For the entire night, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were cautiously looking around, worried that danger would appear at any time. Fortunately, the situation wasn't that bad. When Granny Hua and the others came back at dawn, everyone was completely relieved. Granny Hua and the others just came back and saw the courtyard full of people. They were a bit surprised. What? We only left for a day, and you guys miss us so much? Yu Hong joked. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others had been worried the whole night. Only after seeing the four seniors did they heave a sigh of relief. Their mood was extremely good. Senior Yu, we were already looking forward to your return as soon as you left. Come on, you little fellows are acting so strange today. Something must have happened, right? Although Yu Hong liked to joke, he was also very smart. Even though he had just returned, he had already noticed that something was wrong. What happened? Zhong Li Xiaoran asked in a deep voice. Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others recounted everything that had happened. This kind of thing could not be covered up, and there was no need to cover it up. Moreover, Little Blossom and Little Xuanzi were still lying in bed to recuperate. After hearing the whole story, Yu Hong couldn't help but say, "Isn't this too much of a coincidence? We just left and something like this happened. You little fellows are really unlucky." Everyone looked at each other. In fact, they also had the same feeling. You guys handled this matter pretty well. The other party shouldn't be able to find you. Chapter 6392. Senior Hua. If we kill him, will that elder see the scene before his death? Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't help but think of the same thing that happened when they first went to Penglai Island. It brought them a lot of trouble. That's right. For those old fellows, this is a basic method. Hua Shukong nodded and said, "If you go to the Immortal Region in the future, you have to pay attention to this. The Immortal Region of Chaos is slightly better, because the cultivators who go there usually don't have any status or background. It's fine to kill them. However, when you face people with power, you have to be careful when dealing with them." Granny Hua quickly said. Hearing that, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked as if they had learned something. They definitely wouldn't forget it in the future. Are Little Blossom and Little Xuanzi's injuries serious? Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. They were tortured by Gua Xiaojie. Their injuries are very serious. They need to be nursed back to health. I'll go take a look. Granny Hua slowly walked into the house. After saving Little Blossom had been following her. Although Little Blossom didn't stay by Granny Hua's side every day, she would come to accompany Granny Hua every once in a while. In the past, whenever Granny Hua went out to gather herbs, Little Blossom would always accompany her. It was only when Bailey Hongzhuang went out to gather herbs that Little Blossom stopped following her. Hence, the relationship between the two was very deep. You handled it well. Not long later, Granny Hua came out with a satisfied look in her eyes. Grandpa, did you guys get anything this time? Zhongli Xiaoran's expression was gentle. We didn't get anything this time, but we will soon. What do you mean? Half a month later, there will be a gathering in the abandoned immortal forest. At that time, everyone will bring their own things to barter. Are you guys interested? Yu Hong said with a smile. As soon as he said this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' eyes lit up. There's a gathering in the abandoned immortal forest? Hua Shukong nodded. Actually, there's one every year. It's just that we weren't interested in it before. However, The things on this gathering will be good for you guys, so you can go take a look. Grandpa, isn't the gathering in the immortal region of chaos? Is it in the abandoned immortal forest this time? Zhong Limu felt a little strange. He had never heard his grandfather mention this before. There is indeed a gathering in the realm of chaotic immortal. However, those guys have always been deceiving people. The abandoned immortal forest also had its own market, where many precious herbs would appear. However, because everyone needed daily necessities, there was not much that could be traded at the market. But this year is a little different. The heavenly fruit has matured. Yu Hong's lips curled into a smug smile. The gazes of Zhongli Xiao ran, and the other two also softened. Heavenly fruit? Bailey Hongzhuang was surprised. She had never heard of such a fruit. You all know that the cultivators who ascend to the immortal domain are all at the Radiant Sun realm. You've already seen 2 cultivators from the immortal domain, and both of them are at the Radiant Sun realm. Don't you find it strange? Hua Shukong smiled faintly. Everyone looked at each other. In fact, they had long felt that it was strange, but they just couldn't figure it out. After ascending to the crossing immortal domain from the Radiant Sun realm, Chu Huan and the other 2 must have been there for quite some time, since they were able to enter the crossing immortal domain and join a sect. Chapter 6393. Could it be that the inability to break through has something to do with the fruit of destiny? Di Baichen asked in a low voice. Yes and no, Zhongli Xiao said. After the Radiant Sun realm is the elementary immortal realm. Only after breaking through to the elementary immortal realm can one be called an immortal. The gap between a human and an immortal is not something that can be easily crossed. It is extremely difficult to break through to the Radiant Sun realm. Who knows how many cultivators are stuck at the Radiant Sun realm, unable to make any progress. Some are even unable to break through for the rest of their lives. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others' expressions changed slightly. They had guessed that breaking through to the Radiant Moon realm would be extremely difficult. However, after hearing all this, they realized that it was far more difficult than they had imagined. Back then, when we were trying to break through to the Radiant Sun realm, we also spent a lot of time. Therefore, if you are stuck at this stage for too long, there is no need to be anxious. The gap between a human and an immortal is definitely not simple. Crossing it means being reborn. As for the fruit of destiny, it will be of great help to your breakthrough. Hearing this, everyone realized the importance of the fruit of destiny. Since it was so difficult to break through to the Radiant Sun realm, treasures that could help in breaking through were extremely important. Master, the fruit of destiny has such an incredible effect. It must be extremely valuable. Can we exchange for it? Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was serious. They had to exchange for such an important fruit, no matter what price they had to pay. Granny Hua smiled faintly. If it were anyone else, it would indeed be difficult to exchange for the fruit of destiny. Fortunately, we have some friendship with that fellow. As long as we take out something that he likes, it shouldn't be a problem. Granny Hua, then what is he like? Zhong Limu's face was filled with curiosity and worry. But we don't have any precious treasures here. What does the abandoned immortal forest lack the most? What we lack the most is not other things, but living resources. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others looked at each other. A guess surfaced in their minds. It can't be that easy, right? So the few of you should make a trip back to the upper realm and buy all the delicious and fun things you can find there. When the time comes, make him happy, and this matter will be settled. Yu Hong looked at the group of juniors with a face full of smiles. You guys are really lucky. This Heaven's Will fruit takes a long time to ripen. You guys are lucky to have encountered it. Although the seniors spoke casually, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others understood that the seniors must have done them a favor. The fruit of Heaven's Will was so precious that if it was sold in the realm of chaotic immortals, it would definitely fetch a shocking price. It was definitely not something that could be exchanged for with these simple things. Thus, it was all because of the 4 seniors that he had this opportunity. Thank you, Master. Everyone bowed, their faces full of gratitude. Since you've already called me Master, there's no need to be so courteous. Being able to complete your apprenticeship earlier is what we want to see the most. After learning of the situation, they did not leave immediately. Instead, they waited for another 2 days. Xiao Xuanzi and Little Flower had already woken up. Although their injuries could not be completely healed in a short period of time, it was obvious that they could already move. The next step was only a matter of time. Chapter 6394. As soon as they returned to the upper realm, Xiren and Shengguan Yingying went directly to the Emperor Cloud City and bought all the things they thought might be useful. Cultivation resources were very expensive, but these daily necessities didn't cost many spirit stones. Di Beichen directly sent people to look for some interesting things. Mo Yunjiwe and the others didn't stay idle either. They kept thinking about what the senior might need. When they thought of something, they directly made a list and handed it to Di Beichen. The Di family's manpower was very efficient, needless to say. Therefore, it didn't take long for a lot of interesting things to be collected. Di Yujiwe was a little surprised when he learned that Di Beichen and the others suddenly began to collect these things after coming out of seclusion. However, they didn't take it too seriously. Perhaps it was because they had been cultivating for a long time, so it was normal for them to want to fiddle with new things. At this age, it was indeed boring to just cultivate all day long. After staying in the family for a few days, Di Beichen and the others felt that they were almost ready. These were all the things they needed in life. Other than that, they really couldn't think of anything else. Looking at the things in the storage ring, Xiren couldn't help but say, "The things we prepared are enough to build a new house. These should be enough, right?" Listening to Xiren's words, everyone felt the same. They had already bought everything they could. Some things that they thought were good were bought more than one set. Other than that, they really couldn't think of anything else to buy. "It should be enough," Di Beichen responded. In fact, the other party is mainly looking at the friendship of the 4 seniors. Our things don't have much meaning. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Anyone would know that such things were simply not as valuable as the fruit of heaven's will. In the end, what they owed was the kindness of the 4 seniors. In fact, there is some meaning to it. Look at how powerful the seniors are. They were always hungry every day before. I think birds of a feather flock together. Maybe that senior is also a foodie. Shengguan Yingying had an excited smile on her face. She felt that her judgment was quite reasonable. Everyone looked at each other, and then looked at Shengguan Yingying silently. What? Am I wrong? Shengguan Yingying felt a little guilty under everyone's gaze. Everyone looked at her and suddenly said in unison, "We also think that what you said is very reasonable." "You scared me to death." Shengguan Yingying rolled her eyes. "Then let's go back earlier. I wonder if Xiao Xuanzi and Xiao Hua are feeling better now." As usual, Bailey Hongzhuang left the pills that she had refined with the clan. Only then did everyone head towards the abandoned immortal forest again. As soon as they arrived, everyone saw Xiao Xuanzi's figure. Di Beichen sized up Xiao Xuanzi and said with a smile, "It seems that your injuries have recovered well." "Master," Xiao Xuanzi smiled faintly, "my injuries are not serious. Don't be too casual. Don't move your arm casually. The injury is too serious. If you don't take good care of it, it will be troublesome if there is a chronic illness in the future." Bailey Hongzhuang warned. Just a moment ago, she noticed that Xiao Xuanzi wanted to move his arm, so she specially reminded him. Xiao Xuanzi nodded slightly. "I know. Where's Xiao Hua?" Shengguan Yingying asked with a smile. Chapter 6395. Everyone walked into the courtyard. Xiao Hua was with Granny Hua. Seeing everyone return, the 2 of them were very happy. "You're back." Granny Hua put down the herbs in her hand and smiled. "Granny, we bought everything we could think of, but we don't know if we can succeed." Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and sat down beside Granny Hua. "Last time you said you liked to eat pastries, so I bought some again." Good. Granny Hua looked kind. "Don't worry. Although that old man likes to take advantage of others, it's not that easy to take advantage of us. Xiao Hua, you look much better." Shengguan Yingying looked at Little Flower. Although Little Flower still looked a little weak, she was much better than her previous pale appearance. Thank you for saving my life. Xiaohua bowed sincerely. Her eyes were filled with gratitude. If everyone didn't arrive in time, she would have lost her life. When Xiren smiled faintly and said, "We are not the most important. There is someone you should thank properly." When he said that, a sly smile appeared in everyone's eyes. Xiaohua didn't agree to Xiao Xuanzi's pursuit before. But after this incident, it could be said that a friend in need was a friend indeed. Xiao Xuanzi was willing to give up his life for Xiaohua. If it was anyone else, they would be touched, right? However, after hearing this, Xiaohua's expression became complicated, and there was a hint of indescribable bitterness. Seeing that, everyone's heart slightly changed. Could it be that there was something they didn't know? They didn't ask further. Since it was difficult to say, it must be difficult to say. If they continued to ask, it wouldn't be good. There were still a few days before the market started. But it was said that the market was located in the center of the abandoned immortal forest. From where they were, it would take them 3 days to get there. Therefore, everyone had already started to prepare. This was the first lively event they encountered after coming to the abandoned immortal forest. Naturally, they couldn't miss it. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang was preparing to go out to pick herbs, but unexpectedly saw Xiaohua's figure. "Xiaohua, why aren't you resting? Why are you up so early? Hongzhuang, can I go with you to pick herbs?" Little Blossom had a complicated expression on her face. Bailey Hongzhuang wanted to refuse. With Little Blossom's current physical condition, going out might put a burden on her injuries. However, after noticing her expression, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded. Okay. After agreeing, Bailey Hongzhuang changed her plan. She wouldn't go to a faraway place to gather herbs, but would gather herbs nearby. They were silent all the way. After a while, Bailey Hongzhuang said, "Little Blossom, do you have something to tell me?" Xiaohua looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a complicated expression. "Hongzhuang, ever since this incident, I noticed that Xiao Xuanzi's attitude has changed." His attitude changed. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. "How did it change? He doesn't talk to me much now. I feel like he's intentionally avoiding me." Xiaohua's face was troubled. Bailey Hongzhuang thought about it carefully. Recently, she went out to cultivate with everyone during the day, so she wasn't too sure about Xiao Xuanzi and Xiaohua's situation. Chapter 6396. When Xiaohua was injured, they all saw how uncomfortable Xiao Xuanzi was. Perhaps the injuries on his body were nothing, but he couldn't protect the person he loved deeply. This feeling was very painful. Don't be fooled by Xiao Xuanzi's flirtatious appearance. He's actually very serious about you. So this incident gave him a big blow. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Xiaohua seriously and said, "Don't think too much. He probably just needs some time." Xiaohua nodded slightly. "I hope so too. But I don't know why. But I have a vague feeling that he's getting farther and farther away from me. He's never been like this before. I feel a little nervous." Seeing the worry in Xiaohua's eyes, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled slightly. Linger was right. Xiao Xuanzi was in Xiaohua's heart. At this moment, there was no need to ask whether she liked him or not. Her attitude had already expressed everything. "Xiaohua, Xiao Xuanzi's feelings for you were very clear on that day. Perhaps this incident really gave him a big blow. But I believe that as long as you two have feelings for each other, you won't be separated. I know that after this incident, you probably want to agree to be with Xiao Xuanzi. But after such a long time, although you two haven't confirmed your identities, you haven't been separated, right?" As Bailey Hongzhuang's voice fell, Little Blossom was slightly startled, and his dim eyes gradually reignited with brilliance. "Hongzhuang, I think I understand." A smile appeared on Xiaohua's face. "Thank you." Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand. "I didn't do anything. But I really hope that when we go to the realm of chaotic immortals, there will be a new member in our team." Hearing that, the smile on Xiaohua's face became gentler. The original distance between them was broken at this moment. She also opened her mouth. "Actually, when I first met Xiao Xuanzi, I thought that I would definitely not be with him. He doesn't look serious at all, and he doesn't cultivate properly. He's not my type at all. But after getting along with him for a long time, I realized that he only likes to joke, but he is actually very serious. I didn't think that something like this would happen this time. I also understand that his feelings have changed, but I feel very sad that he is avoiding me like this. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Think about it. Little Xuanzi likes you so much. He can't possibly hide from you all the time. I've always treated Xiao Xuanzi like this in the past. Will you guys dislike me? Little Blossom looked at Bailey Hongzhuang nervously. That's impossible. Actually, all of us have always liked you. If it wasn't for you constantly supervising little Xuanzi, his strength wouldn't have improved so much. Not only that, because of you, Xiao Xuanzi spent a lot of time just to lose weight. Even Yin Che and the others admire his perseverance. Seeing that Little Flower was very interested in Xiao Xuanzi, Bailey Hongzhuang didn't mind chatting with her. After chatting for a while, Little Blossom was no longer as depressed as before. Instead, he made up his mind. She would wait for Xiao Xuanzi to figure everything out. On this day, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others packed up their things and followed behind the 4 seniors to the market. Chapter 6397. This was the group's first time passing through the abandoned immortal forest. Previously, they were all near their residences. As they went deeper into the abandoned immortal forest, they realized how big the forest was. Previously, they had only been to 100th, or even 1,000th of the abandoned immortal forest. Bailey Hongzhuang's harvest on the way was also very rich. Many immortal spirit grass could be seen everywhere on the side of the road. She picked some when she saw them on the way. Usually, when she was refining pills, these herbs would always come. Moreover, most of these herbs were very helpful to them. Master, the abandoned immortal forest is so rich in herbs. Why didn't the immortal domain take the abandoned immortal forest into the domain of the immortal domain? Why did they give it up? Bailey Hongzhuang was confused. She knew that the cultivation resources of the immortal domain must be very plentiful. However, wasn't it strange that such a large forest was abandoned? Such a large forest, there must be many precious immortal herbs inside. Those people from the immortal domain didn't want to give up on this place. There were some reasons that forced them to do so. A trace of disdain appeared in Granny Hua's eyes. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest looked at each other. They still didn't understand. Back then, the immortal domain did want to take over the abandoned immortal forest. However, there were still some exceptional experts in the forest. As long as they didn't agree, those guys couldn't enter. Those old guys from the immortal domain wanted to save face. Therefore, they named the forest the abandoned immortal forest. Naturally, the cultivators living here became abandoned people. Hua Shukong explained. Hearing this, everyone finally understood. So there was a twist in the story. It seemed like the reason why the abandoned immortal forest was abandoned was not because it wasn't good. It was because they couldn't get it. Speaking of which, it's all thanks to what happened back then. Otherwise, the abandoned immortal forest would be gone. That would be really troublesome. Zhong Li Xiaoran sighed. Master, this means that there are many experts in the abandoned immortal forest? Mo Yunjue's eyes were filled with curiosity. Up until now, they hadn't seen many other people in the abandoned immortal forest. If they didn't know that there were people from the immortal region who had been capturing abandoned people in the vicinity, they wouldn't even be sure that there were other people living here. Of course there are experts, and there are quite a few of them. Granny Hua smiled faintly. However, these old fellows have already seen through the world, and are only willing to be ordinary people. You guys don't need to be too curious. There are definitely people living in the abandoned immortal forest. It was just that the area was too big, so everyone's living quarters were a little sparse. When we reach the market, you'll see the others. Yu Hong stroked his beard with a smile on his face. That's right. There are always a lot of people at the market. Zhong Limu smiled. After traveling for 3 days, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others finally arrived at the market. From afar, they could already hear the bustling noises in front of them. Immediately, their eyes lit up, and a strong sense of excitement emerged in their eyes. We're here, we're here. Zhong Limu pointed to the front, his face full of anticipation. Chapter 6398. The tents in front of them looked very simple, but at a glance, the road was very long. The lively conversations were simple and honest. It wasn't just the children, but even some of the elders were chatting happily. As a member of the abandoned immortal forest, they didn't usually see many people. It was only when the market was held that they had the opportunity to gather together. Bailey Hongzhuang quietly watched the scene in front of her. This place wasn't as prosperous as the Emperor Cloud City, but this market gave her an unprecedented feeling. Come, let's go set up our tents first. Yu Hong smiled faintly. If you little fellows want to wander around first, then go ahead and look around. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others weren't in a hurry to leave. Instead, they followed behind the four elders and chose a place to put down their things. Granny Hua, you're finally here. At that moment, a granny similar in age to Granny Hua walked over. When she saw Bailey Hongzhuang, her eyes lit up. Granny Hua, when did you find such a beautiful girl? Could she be your granddaughter? Granny Li, you must be joking. She is my disciple Hongzhuang. Granny Hua smiled and waved at Bailey Hongzhuang. Hongzhuang, come here. Bailey Hongzhuang turned and quickly walked over. This is Granny Li. Granny Li has a lot of precious immortal spirit herbs. If you need anything, you can ask Granny Li. Greetings, Granny Li. Bailey Hongzhuang curtsied. Granny Li smiled and nodded. When I get closer, this girl is even more beautiful. Is she married? Coincidentally, Old Man Gu's grandson hasn't married yet. This, ahem. Di Beichen coughed lightly. Unknowingly, he was already standing beside Bailey Hongzhuang. What a handsome child. Granny Li looked at Di Beichen in surprise. I haven't seen you in a while. Granny Hua, your place is very lively. Granny Hua shook her head helplessly. Granny Li, you are the most famous matchmaker in the abandoned immortal forest. However, you don't have to think about these two. They are a couple. I see. Granny Hua suddenly understood. Looking at it this way, they are a match made in heaven. Di Beichen quietly winked at Bailey Hongzhuang, and the latter couldn't help but laugh. While Granny Hua and Granny Li were talking, Yu Hong and the others were also talking with some old acquaintances. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others quietly looked at everything in front of them, only to discover the other side of the four seniors. Everyone was well aware of how terrifying their strength was. These elders might look ordinary and mediocre, but they might be hidden experts. Now they already knew how terrifying the abandoned immortal forest was. This wasn't an abandoned forest, but a forest that even the immortal domain couldn't obtain. Perhaps one of these people was a senior, who had once made a name for himself in the immortal realm. Zhongli Mu, what are you looking for? Shangguan Yingying patted Zhongli Mu's shoulder and asked. Zhongli Mu was startled at first, but when he noticed that it was Shangguan Yingying, he relaxed and said, Sister Yingying, I'm just checking if that senior is here. Which senior? Chapter 6399. Shangguan Yingying finally understood that the person Zhongli Mu was looking forward to the most was the senior with the heavenly fruit. Have you seen that senior before? Zhongli Mu shook his head. Then why are you still looking? Even if he comes, you won't recognize him. I think that if that senior comes, grandfather and the rest will definitely look for him. Zhongli Mu said calmly. That makes sense. Shangguan Yingying nodded and also looked at the side. There were many small stalls here, with various items on display. There were countless medicinal herbs, but in a place like the abandoned immortal forest, medicinal herbs were not the most attractive. On the contrary, daily necessities and even food were more popular. Bailey Hongzhuang and Di Beichen helped set up the tents before looking around. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up. Looking around, she saw many precious immortal herbs. The abandoned immortal forest was indeed a land of treasures, with countless immortal herbs. If Dr. Wu comes here, he will definitely feel like he's in heaven. Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. A while ago, when she gave some immortal herbs to Wu Weiming, she could still clearly remember the latter's expression. To a doctor, there was nothing more attractive than immortal herbs. Why do I feel that wifey's feelings at this moment are very similar? Di Beichen's lips slightly raised, his eyes smiling. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows and rolled her eyes. Alright, actually when I see these herbs, I also have the urge to take them all. Granny Hua placed the medicine and pills that she made on a daily basis on the stall for others to choose from. In the abandoned immortal forest, there were not many spiritual stones, so everyone bartered. Yu Hong and Hua Shukong also took out some furniture, runes and erase stones. These were things that the two of them made when they were bored. After all, they had to have something to attend the gathering. Out of the four of them, only Zhongli Xiaoran was empty-handed, clearly not intending to sell anything. In this regard, not to mention the three elders, even Bailey Hongzhuang and the others were already used to it. Senior Zhongli had always had the demeanor of an expert. If he really did such a thing, everyone would find it hard to believe. It's still early now. The gathering will only begin at night. You've been on the road for a few days. I'm sure you're all tired. Why don't you take a rest first? Yu Hong walked over from behind. This gathering is only lively at night. You'll see many more teams coming later. Hearing this, everyone finally understood what was going on. Normally, the abandoned immortal forest would be quiet at night. However, with this gathering, the night became much livelier. As the sky darkened, more and more tents appeared around them. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the tents around her. Sounds of joyful conversation could be heard, revealing a simple yet intimate atmosphere. So there are so many people in the abandoned immortal forest. How surprising. If everyone in the abandoned immortal forest lived together, it would be a big town. Di Beichen's face was filled with emotions. He did not check the cultivation levels of these people, but he knew that although there were some ordinary people, most of them were not weak. Chapter 6400. Right now, I feel that the abandoned immortal forest is actually pretty good. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Granny Hua and the rest should have returned here after seeing the world. It is indeed very comfortable here. Di Beichen looked at the simple people around him. They cultivated all the way here for the sake of becoming stronger and to better protect their loved ones. If everything was arranged properly in the future, he hoped that he could live a carefree life with Hongzhuang. That old fellow Meng Buchuan is finally here. Yu Hong brushed his sleeves and sighed in relief. Hua Shukong shook his head. What are you worried about? Although that old fellow has a strange temper, he has always kept his promises. Since he said he would come, he will definitely not go back on his words. Aren't I worried about these two idiotic disciples? Yu Hong sighed. Beichen and Hongzhuang are extremely talented. Even without the heavens will fruit, it is only a matter of time before they break through to the elementary immortal stage. However, with Xiren and Yingying's comprehension, who knows how much effort they will need to spend to break through to the elementary immortal stage. Hua Shukong chuckled. I didn't expect you to be so worried about these two little fellows. They are quite lucky. Let's go. It's time for you to perform. Zhongli Xiaoran slowly stood up and waved his hand, indicating for everyone to follow him. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest's eyes lit up and followed behind Zhongli Xiaoran. Soon, everyone stopped in front of a tent. This tent was different from other tents. It looked exceptionally simple and did not seem to have been set up properly. It was just casually set up and looked as though it would collapse if a gust of wind blew over. A white-haired old man was lying on a rocking chair. His eyes were half closed and he looked drowsy. Old man Meng, can't you set up this tent better? Yu Hong looked at the tent with disdain. Every time I see this tent of yours, I feel like it will land on my face in the next second. Meng Buchuan slowly raised his head and lazily glanced at Yu Hong. I'm naturally waiting for someone to help me set up this tent. How could Bailey Hongzhuang not understand what he meant? In the next moment, Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue and the rest of the men quickly walked around the tent and began to stabilize it. Yu Hong and the other three exchanged glances. They had finally seen through the old man's temperament. Lazy. He was lazy to the extreme. Bailey Hongzhuang immediately took out another recliner and placed a soft cushion on it. She smiled and said, Senior Meng, this cushion is made of goose feathers. It's unusually soft. Would you like to try it? Meng Buchuan looked at Bailey Hongzhuang and raised his eyebrows. He then walked to the new soft chair and laid down. As expected, he felt much more comfortable. You old fellows really didn't expect to live so comfortably. With these young people showing filial piety to you, you really know how to enjoy it. Zhongli Xiaoran's face was cold. I can't compare to you. Old man Zhongli, we've been fighting for so many years, and we still haven't decided a winner. Now that you have a favor to ask of me, if you have this attitude, then I'll take my leave first. Meng Buchuan said indifferently. Zhongli Xiaoran's face changed. Yu Hong stood between the two of them and said with a smile, Old man Meng, today you're the boss, okay? Chapter 6401. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others quietly looked at each other, their hearts somewhat amused. Originally, they heard Granny Hua say that Senior Meng's temper was a bit strange, and they were curious as to how strange it was. Now that they saw this scene, they understood that Senior Meng and Senior Zhongli's temperament was very similar. Normally, Senior Yu and the others couldn't deal with Senior Zhongli, but this Senior Meng was clearly on par with Senior Zhongli. Senior Meng, we heard that you like to drink, so we prepared a lot of good wine this time. All of them are old wine. Ziran Wen quickly walked over with a smile on his face. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others didn't delay, and took out the wine they prepared. This Heaven's Will fruit is related to their future. It was already not easy for the four seniors to connect them. Whether they could get this Heaven's Will fruit or not, it was up to them. All kinds of old wine were placed in front of Meng Buchuan. Good wine and good dishes were placed to the side. When the wind blew, a tempting fragrance entered everyone's nose. So fragrant. Originally, there weren't many people around Meng Buchuan's tent. However, when the good wine and good meat were brought out, it immediately attracted everyone. When everyone saw the food placed in front of Meng Buchuan, their eyes lit up. Old man Meng, where did you get all this? You can't finish eating so much by yourself. How about I help you eat one? Normally, you would ask me for wine to drink. Today, no matter what, you have to bring me along. At this moment, the seniors didn't care about their face. Living in the abandoned immortal forest was indeed very comfortable. However, there weren't many good things. Normally, everyone would put all their energy into cultivation. How many people would actually learn to cook? Moreover, there weren't many seasonings here. Only when they went to the chaotic immortal domain could they eat a big meal. Now that they saw so many good things, and each of them looked very delicious, everyone's appetite was immediately aroused. Normally, I don't see you guys so active. Now you all came. I still have some things to do. I'll find you guys later. Meng Buchuan waved his hand. He was too lazy to pay attention to them. Seeing this, everyone curled their lips. Meng Buchuan was famous for his gluttony and love of wine. This guy said that he was busy now, but when they came later, there would be nothing left. Senior Meng, would you like to try it? Di Xiaofeng passed the chopsticks to Meng Buchuan. Meng Buchuan slowly took the chopsticks. After tasting it, his eyes suddenly lit up, and then he calmly put down the chopsticks. Granny Hua and Hua Xiukong glanced at each other. They understood Meng Buchuan's temperament very well. It was just that every time they met Zhongli Xiaoran, the two of them would easily clash. It tastes good. Meng Buchuan nodded slightly. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang and the others smiled. As long as Senior Meng liked them, they would be happy. Senior Meng, we heard that your residence is relatively simple. We also heard that you like to play chess. This time, we specially brought a chessboard and chess pieces. Di Baichen slowly took out the chessboard and handed the round chess box directly to Meng Buchuan. This chess piece is made of top-grade mutton fat jade. It's warm to the touch and is full of spiritual energy. Chapter 6402. Seeing the chessboard and chess pieces, Meng Buchuan's face could not help but reveal a satisfied smile. You little fellows are quite thoughtful. Bailey Hongzhuang and the others smiled. It seemed that their preparations were quite sufficient. At least, this could be considered as having obtained Senior Meng's approval. As everyone took out the things they had prepared one by one, Meng Buchuan's previous indifference turned into joy. When Granny Hua and the others saw the increasing number of things, they were somewhat astonished. It seemed that these little fellows had clearly taken their words to heart. Did they bring out all the things they could think of? Look at how Old Man Meng is grinning from ear to ear. Yu Hong clicked his tongue and sighed. He felt somewhat uncomfortable in his heart. These little fellows didn't even buy so many things for me. Weren't you the one who deliberately told me to put in more effort? Hua Shukong raised his eyebrows, his expression somewhat complicated. Why did he feel that Old Man Meng's smile was a bit dazzling? Yu Hong sighed. If I had known earlier, I wouldn't have warned him so. Look at his complacent look. Granny Hua looked at the two fellows who seemed to have been robbed of their disciples, and could not help but shake her head. She did not know if the older they got, the more they lived, the more they could not even figure out this kind of thing. After a long while, Zhongli Shaoran said, Old Man Meng, this should be filial piety. You can't just accept and not spit it out, right? Meng Buchuan chuckled and swept his gaze over Bailey Hongzhuang and the others. This Heaven's Will fruit is also a supreme treasure in the immortal domain. Many people yearn for it but can't get it. However, I find you little fellows very pleasing to the eye, so I'll give it to you. A deep red fruit appeared in Meng Buchuan's hand, and everyone's attention was instantly attracted by this fruit. The tender and juicy color revealed a dazzling luster, as bright as a gem. It did not have any smell, as if all the energy had been locked in the flesh. Many thanks, Senior Meng. Everyone's face was filled with joy, and they gratefully bowed. They could not help but feel excited in their hearts. This thing was really precious. I'm sure all of you already know the effects of the fruit of destiny. However, even if Granny Hua's alchemy skills are superb, the pills concocted from the fruit of destiny will not be enough for all of you. As soon as he said this, everyone's expression changed slightly. In fact, this was also within their expectations. Such heavenly treasures were very precious, and it was already very difficult to find one. However, there were so many of them, so it was impossible for everyone to have one. However, they didn't care. As long as someone had it, it was already very good. However, I happen to have 2 heavenly fruits here. It's rare for me to find someone pleasing to the eye, so I'll give this second one to you. Another fruit appeared before everyone's eyes. Suddenly, a trace of excitement appeared in everyone's eyes. Granny Hua, you better keep it well. Grandma Hua received the 2 fruits of Heaven's Will, and looked at Meng Buchuan with some surprise. She really didn't think that Meng Buchuan would be so generous today. Thank you, Senior Meng. Everyone bowed again, their hearts filled with gratitude. Old Man Meng, don't worry. I won't waste these 2 fruits. Chapter 6403. Haha, it's rare for you to be so generous. Yu Hong sat down without any hesitation. In a short period of time, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest had already prepared all the tables and chairs. Thinking about it carefully, the storage rings of cultivators were filled with these things. They were probably the only ones. Granny Hua and Hua Shukong also sat down at the side. This time, the things prepared by these little fellows were not ordinary sumptuous. There were many that suited their tastes. What? Old man Zhongli is still not giving face? Meng Buchuan looked at Zhongli Shaoran, only to see him standing in the same place, with no intention of sitting down. Old man, you're really boring. After so many years, you're still so old-fashioned. No wonder you're not liked. Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest silently looked at Zhongli Shaoran. They never thought that there would be a day where Senior Zhongli would be evaluated like this. It was inexplicably funny. Even if there's food, it still can't shut your mouth. While the 5 seniors were eating, Bailey Hongzhuang and the rest did not continue to stay here. Old friends naturally had a lot to talk about when they met, and they wanted to walk around the surrounding stalls. Along the way, they realized that although most of the herbs were sold here, there were also some pills, runes, formation stones and the like. They casually asked and everyone was very enthusiastic. Bailey Hongzhuang saw some immortal spirit herbs and used some clothes to exchange for them. After the other party saw that the quality of the clothes was very good, they casually threw in a bunch of immortal spirit herbs. Seeing this scene, everyone was secretly speechless. These immortal spirit herbs were incomparably precious to the upper realm cultivators, but they could be exchanged with just some clothes here. Most importantly, they casually threw in a bunch. Were they green onions? Through this, everyone understood that not only were the people of the abandoned immortal forest simple, they were also very enthusiastic. In addition, every family had the opportunity to gather together almost every year. So many people knew each other. Naturally, there was no such thing as taking advantage of others. Everyone immediately relaxed and scattered. With so many stalls, they would definitely find something they were interested in. Bachin stopped at a stall because there were a few books on it. This book looked very old, but the writing on it was still very clear. What was written was about runes. After casually flipping through a few pages, Bachin realized that the contents of this rune book were very precious. He originally wanted to buy this rune book, but found that the other party did not intend to sell it, so he could only look at it here. Bachin, you can read it here. The contents are good. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. I'll go to the stalls in front of us to look for immortal spirit herbs. Although there were quite a few herbs, of course a lot of them, but they were different. She had seen many herbs in books, but they did not grow near their residence. Instead, they grew in the depths of the abandoned immortal forest. Normally, it was not realistic for her to go so far to pick herbs. Now that she had such a good opportunity, she naturally wanted to buy more. Even if it was to go back and study the medicinal properties, it would be good too. Bachin nodded slightly. Be careful, don't run too far. Don't worry. What's there to worry about? Chapter 6404. Shangguan Yingying and Wen Ziren were also very interested in talismans. The talismans collected by these seniors were often very precious. They had been studying recently. Naturally, the talismans taught by their master were not bad. However, these precious talismans were all treasures. It was good to read more. Mo Yunjue, on the other hand, was reading a book on array formations. Although he usually didn't talk much, the seniors had always praised him, because his hard work was engraved in his bones. He would not be as noisy as Wen Ziren, saying everything out loud, but his improvement was very astonishing. Old man, you and I have been fighting for so many years, but we still can't determine the victor. Why don't we compete again this time? Meng Buchuan suddenly looked at Zhongli Xiaoran. His words were full of fighting spirit. Zhongli Xiaoran raised his eyebrows. How? Since Bachin and Mo Yunjue are both first-class geniuses, why don't we each take them as disciples? When the time comes, let's see who can teach better. As soon as these words came out, Granny Hua and the others looked at Meng Buchuan, and Zhongli Xiaoran in surprise. They did not expect him to suddenly propose such an idea. In fact, Zhongli Xiaoran had always been teaching Bachin. However, he did not take him as a disciple like them. If today's bet was successful, it would be very beneficial for Bachin and Mo Yunjue. After all, these two guys were not weak. As long as they could learn from them, even if they only learned 30% of their skills, they would not need to worry too much when they went to the chaotic immortal domain. Old man Zhongli, I think this idea is very good. What do you think? Yu Hong urged. Zhongli Xiaoran frowned, and did not immediately answer. Old man Zhongli, don't tell me you don't dare? Meng Buchuan raised his head and smiled. It's okay if you don't dare. Who said I don't dare? Let's compete. Okay. The wine cups clinked and the two drank. It's a deal. Seeing this, Granny Hua and the others looked at each other. They felt a little funny. Mo Yunjue and Bachin's luck was really good. Not only did they obtain the heavenly bestowed fruit, but they also had a few people who recognized them as their masters. One had to know that there were many people who wanted to become the disciples of these two fellows, but failed. Now this opportunity had fallen directly into their hands. They were really lucky. Miss needs the blue rain flower? I seem to have picked some of them, but they are in the tent. Do you want to come in and pick some? A granny looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a smile. Are you following Granny Hua? I've never seen you before. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled and nodded. We only started following Granny recently. Since you are one of Granny Hua's people, you can take a look around. Granny Hua sells them at a cheap price. Thank you, Granny. Bailey Hongzhuang slowly walked into the tent. Along the way, almost everyone was very enthusiastic. There were even people who wanted to introduce her husband, but she rejected them one by one. Now that she had already bought a lot of things, she could go back after buying a few more. She also wanted to look at books on runes and arrays. These things were really helpful. After walking into the tent, there were indeed many immortal herbs. Bailey Hongzhuang saw the blue rain flower that she needed. Granny, I need these immortal herbs. After picking some immortal herbs, Bailey Hongzhuang turned around and said, Chapter 6405. The moment she felt the danger, Bailey Hongzhuang instinctively dodged. I didn't expect you to be so quick-witted. The granny's face was no longer as kind as before. It now had a trace of viciousness. Who exactly are you? Bailey Hongzhuang's face was solemn. She never expected that someone would attack her in the middle of the abandoned immortal forest's gathering. Most importantly, this was her first time here. Logically speaking, she shouldn't have any enmity with anyone. You'll find out soon enough. Granny's body was nimble as she swiftly flew over. Bailey Hongzhuang quickly dodged, not daring to stay any longer, as she hurriedly flew outside. Just as she turned around, a hand suddenly attacked her from behind. Bang! With a hand chop, Bailey Hongzhuang felt her vision darken. The black-robed man looked at the unconscious Bailey Hongzhuang and turned his head to say, "Thank you very much for this time." As the night deepened, Di Beichen put down the talisman book in his hand as his eyebrows slightly creased. Hongzhuang had only said that she needed to buy some herbs and would look for him very soon. But after so long, she still hadn't returned. This was rather strange. Young man, you're not reading this book anymore? Di Beichen nodded slightly. I need to look for my wife. I'll come back later. All right. As they walked forward, Di Beichen realized that he hadn't seen Bailey Hongzhuang's figure and knew that something was amiss. When Wen Xiren and the rest found out, they were completely dumbfounded. They had strolled around the market for a long time and hadn't encountered any danger. Everyone was very enthusiastic. It was hard to believe that something had happened to Hongzhuang here. What did you say? Hongzhuang has disappeared? Granny Hua had originally wanted to tell them about Zhongli Xiaoran and Meng Buchuan, wanting to take in a disciple. But when she suddenly heard this, her expression changed. Di Beichen's face was solemn. Hongzhuang said that she was going to the stall in front to buy immortal herbs, but she disappeared afterwards. Zhongli Xiaoran and the others stood up as well, and their expressions became extremely solemn. Someone actually dares to do such a thing at this fair? Tell me, where is Hongzhuang now? Granny Hua's expression was serious. Hongzhuang was her disciple. Since someone dared to attack Hongzhuang here, she would definitely not let them off. Di Beichen's heart was already hanging in the air, full of worry. There were many experts in the abandoned immortal forest. When he thought that Hongzhuang might have met with misfortune, his heart ached so much that he could not breathe. Fortunately, Linger and Bai Lianche were safe and sound, which at least proved that Hongzhuang was still alive. It's right ahead. Di Beichen pointed to the front. Granny Hua and the others quickly arrived at the place where the two of them had parted. Granny Hua, what happened? When the surrounding people saw Granny Hua and the others, they all asked curiously, "Did you see where my disciple went? She was wearing a white dress and was very pretty." Hearing this, everyone immediately understood. That lady didn't go to the front to buy herbs after buying herbs from me. She should be at the stall in front. You can go and ask around. Di Beichen and Mo Yunjue quickly rushed to the front and asked what had happened. Finally, everyone's footsteps stopped in front of an empty stall. Chapter 6406. A few days ago, Xianqing Sect's Plum Blossom Peak. Guosheng looked at the crazy Guoxiaojia in front of him. His eyes were filled with heartache, but he could not hide his anger. Who is it? Who the hell did this? Elder, this person must have set up an illusion to make Guoxiaojia immerse in it. The scene of the illusion is very scary, beyond what Guoxiaojia can handle. That's why he became like this. Can we find out who did this? No. The man shook his head. With Guoxiaojia's current state, there's no way to find out. What about Chu Huan and the rest? Guosheng's face was filled with hatred. They couldn't even protect Xiaojia. They're all missing. Guosheng's expression changed slightly. It seems that they met someone they can't afford to offend in the abandoned immortal forest. This person must be powerful to be able to set up such an illusion. In my opinion, Chu Huan and the rest are already dead. Hearing that, Guosheng's expression darkened. He looked at the crazy Guoxiaojie in front of him, unable to hide his pain. Medicine Master Ji, is there really no way to find out who the enemy is? Guosheng looked up at Medicine Master Ji. He only had one grandson. Now that he had turned into a retard, his life was completely ruined. Medicine Master Ji looked at Guoxiaojie with a complicated expression. There is a way, but I'm afraid you can't handle it. What is it? Soul Search. Medicine Master Ji said in a low voice. Soul Search. We can find out everything that happened from his memories. However, Guoxiaojie's life will be in danger. Guosheng was slightly startled. His expression was conflicted and hesitant. Elder Guo, this method is indeed too cruel. I think we should forget about it. After a while, Guosheng's eyes showed a trace of determination. Let's do it. Elder Guo. Medicine Master Ji was in disbelief. Guosheng closed his eyes. Xiaojie has already become like this. Even if he's alive, he's just a piece of trash. Rather than that, why don't we find the person who harmed him? I'll avenge him. Let's do it. Medicine Master Ji's heart skipped a beat. Normally, Guosheng doted on Guoxiaojie to the extreme. No matter how ridiculous Guoxiaojie's actions were, Guosheng would always cover for him. Now that Guoxiaojie had become a retard, Guosheng was so heartless. It was truly chilling. After the soul search ended, Guosheng saw the two people who had attacked. I thought it was some incredible guy, but it turns out it's just two juniors. How dare they attack my grandson? I want them to die without a burial ground. Guosheng was enraged, and the table was directly turned into powder under his attack. Send someone to capture Chu Huan and the other two traitors. Yes, you're just a few outer sect disciples. How dare you betray Xiaojie at such a critical moment? All of you deserve to die. When Bailey Hongzhuang woke up, she only felt that her body was cold, and a cold aura was spreading from all directions. When she opened her eyes, she found herself in a water prison. Her hands and feet were bound by the chains. She tried to struggle, but found that there was a strange power in the chains. This power was similar to the chain that had locked Xiaohua up. It could seal a person's aura, and there was no way to break it. Chapter 6407. Master, are you okay? Xiaohe looked at Bailey Hongzhuang anxiously, her eyes filled with worry. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head. Xiaohe, I'm fine. Xiaohe was relieved to see that Bailey Hongzhuang was safe and sound. Why would someone kidnap us out of the blue? Where is this place? Xiaohe was confused. This was the first time they saw other people from the abandoned immortal forest. They definitely didn't offend anyone. Master, this place doesn't seem to be the abandoned immortal forest. Xiaohe looked around. This was a water prison. The people from the abandoned immortal forest lived in simple places. They wouldn't have spent so much effort to create a water prison. Bailey Hongzhuang was deep in thought. I'm afraid this has something to do with Guoxiaojie. Guoxiaojie? Xiaohe was stunned. After thinking carefully, she realized who this person was. Didn't we already deal with it? There shouldn't be anyone who knows about it. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned. This is also something I don't understand. Back then, when they told their master about this, their master clearly said that the other party had no way of knowing. How did they know? Could it be that Chu Huan and the others were captured? This chain is made of the same material as the one that controlled Xiaohua. I'm afraid we're in Xianqing sect. Bailey Hongzhuang's ink-black phoenix eyes shone with wisdom. Her voice also became certain. This meant that she wasn't in the abandoned immortal forest. She was in the immortal region. Why didn't the other party kill her? Many thoughts appeared in her mind. No matter what, now that she was captured, the situation would become very difficult. Most importantly, no one knew that she was here. Even if Beichen and the others wanted to save her, they wouldn't be able to find her. Master, can you try and see if we can break these chains? Xiaohe looked hopefully at Bailey Hongzhuang. As long as Master entered the chaos ring and came out, The chains should be able to be removed. Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head slightly. No, these chains have locked onto one's soul energy. It's impossible to enter the chaos ring. As soon as she woke up, she had already tried it. The chains were indeed strange, which meant that they were now in a very passive position. Xiao Hei's face paled. This was the first time they had encountered such a chain. As such, the situation had become very troublesome. Be careful, someone is coming. Noticing the footsteps outside, Bailey Hongzhuang reminded him. The elder is already up. Bring him to see the elder. Yes. Two cultivators wearing Xianqing sect robes slowly walked into the water prison. After seeing Bailey Hongzhuang wake up, a hint of surprise quietly appeared in their eyes. Even their Xianqing sect's #1 beauty couldn't compare to such a peerless beauty. Why do you think the great elder captured this beauty? Could it be that Gua Xiaojie wants to harm innocent women again? Chapter 6408. Through the conversation between the two of them, Bailey Hongzhuang had already confirmed the fact that she was really in the Xianqing sect. The journey from the location of the gathering to the Xianqing sect was not far. This also meant that she had been unconscious for a long time. She did not know if Beichen and the others knew where she was now. It would not be easy for her to leave this place. Under the escort of the two of them, Bailey Hongzhuang finally arrived at the house on Changmei Peak. Even though she had never been to the Immortal region, she had some understanding of the situation of the sects in the Immortal region from her master's introduction. Usually, some elders with higher status would have their own mountain peaks to live alone. This elder Gua's status in the Xianqing sect was indeed not simple. Bang! Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao Hei were directly pushed into the door, and then the door closed with a bang. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at the closed door, and then turned to look forward. A man over 50 years old was standing in front of her. His eyes were filled with murderous intent. The air seemed to have frozen, and a terrifying murderous intent spread in all directions. Bailey Hongzhuang just stood there quietly, thinking about how she could leave this place. The most terrible thing was that the chains were still binding her hands. Without the key, she could not open the chains at all. It would be too obvious if she escaped with such an image. The cultivators in the Immortal region were all at the Radiant Sun realm or higher. You were the one who killed Xiaojie? Guosheng looked at Bailey Hongzhuang with a cold expression, and his voice was as gloomy as water. You are really audacious. His roar was filled with madness and anger. Guosheng's face was as ferocious as a demon's, gloomy and frightening. Pa! The long whip ruthlessly lashed Bailey Hongzhuang's body, and the loud sound brought about a shocking bloody mark. Pa! Pa! The long whip ruthlessly lashed Bailey Hongzhuang's body. Even if she tried her best to dodge, it was useless. Guosheng was much stronger than her, so there was no point in dodging. In addition, with the chains, her 5 senses were affected, and her strength was much weaker than before. In a short period of time, her white dress was covered with bloodstains. Wherever the whip passed, the flesh was torn open. Little Black felt a burning pain spread all over his body. Seeing this, he immediately grew bigger and threw himself at Bailey Hongzhuang, blocking the whip. Xiao Hei. Bailey Hongzhuang looked at Xiao Hei anxiously. This whip should be an immortal equipment, and its grade should not be low. Her body had been tempered by lightning, so normal weapons couldn't hurt her. However, this long whip was able to cut open her flesh with a single swing. It was clear how powerful this long whip was. Master, I'm fine. Xiao Hei's lips curled into a smile. Her eyes were filled with willingness. Her white fur had been dyed red with blood, but Xiao Hei insisted on standing in front of Bailey Hongzhuang. Guosheng didn't care. He lashed the man and the beast with his whip again and again. His most beloved grandson had lost his life just like that. This was not enough for him to vent his anger. The sound of the long whip filled the air. Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao Hei had fainted at some point in time. Splash! A basin of salt water was splashed onto the woman and the beast. The burning pain immediately woke them up. Every wound felt as if it was on fire, and the pain seeped into their bones. I haven't taught you a lesson yet and you dare to faint. Chapter 6409. The long whip kept landing on Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao Hei. Bailey Hongzhuang kept looking around. It was obvious that there was no one else here other than Guosheng and them. She was no match for Guosheng. There was nothing she could do other than take the beating. Although the injury was serious, it was obviously not fatal. Therefore, the only thing she could do was to try her best to avoid hitting her vital parts. Guosheng couldn't keep hitting her. If he wanted to vent his anger, he could just kill her. Now that he was torturing her and sparing her life, it was probably because he was unwilling and wanted to attract Beichen and the others. After a while, Guosheng was tired. He grabbed Bailey Hongzhuang's neck with one hand, and his eyes were filled with a malicious light. Do you know why I didn't kill you? I want those arrogant fellows to be buried with Xiaojia. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes were cold. This is the immortal region. People from the abandoned immortal forest can't come to the immortal region. So what? Guosheng snorted. Isn't that Beichen your husband? Do you think he won't come to save you when something like this happened to you? I've already sent people to wait at the entrance. As soon as they appear, they will be caught. When they are all caught, it will be the time of your death. Despicable. Bailey Hongzhuang cursed. You dared to lay your hands on my grandson. This is not enough to vent the hatred in my heart. Guosheng's right hand gradually closed. Bailey Hongzhuang could feel that his aura was much stronger than theirs. It seemed that this Guosheng was a true immortal. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes turned slightly. She wasn't too worried about the safety of Di Beichen and the others. This time, they were with the four elders. When she disappeared, the four elders must have already known. In addition to what Guosheng said, he should have guessed that Beichen and the others would know that she was in Xianqing sect. Although she didn't know what evidence Guosheng left behind, as long as Beichen knew where she was, he would definitely think of a way. Only when Bailey Hongzhuang was on the verge of death did Guosheng let go of his hand. Men, take her back to the water prison. The two men from before appeared again. When they saw Bailey Hongzhuang covered in blood, they were secretly speechless. They had already guessed that this girl's end would be very miserable. But this kind of torture was too cruel. They might as well just end it. However, they didn't dare to disobey Elder Guo's orders, so they dragged Bailey Hongzhuang away. The severe pain caused Bailey's face was pale, but her heart was unusually calm. Although these superficial wounds were serious, they did not harm his core. The most important thing now was to find a way to open the chains. As long as she could open the chains, she would be able to escape. Chapter 64:10. You've returned. One of the disciples looked at the two familiarly. When his gaze fell upon Bailey Hongzhuang, his eyes filled with sorrow. Elder Guo really has the heart to lay his hands on such a beautiful young lady. She has been beaten to such a state. Elder Guo has always doted on Guo Xiaojia. Now that Guo Xiaojia has died at the hands of this woman, it would be strange if he had a good ending. The crowd shook their heads. Such a beauty, even if she was severely injured, was still breathtaking. Unfortunately, this was a person who was bound to die. That's right, Tianlei. Are you lacking in points for this month? I've just heard the news from the resource hall. Your points for this month. Hearing this, the man on Bailey Hongzhuang's left had a change in expression. I've forgotten that it's time to calculate my points again. This won't do. I must make a trip there. As he spoke, the man's figure quickly disappeared without a trace. The disciples all laughed while Bailey Hongzhuang was sent into the water prison by another disciple. As the two of them drew closer to their prison cell, Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiaohe looked at each other, and a look of mutual understanding flashed across their eyes. Xiaohe had been lying on Bailey Hongzhuang's body, as if she had fallen into a deep sleep. However, her two claws nimbly pulled out a medicine bag from Bailey Hongzhuang's chest. The moment the door to the water prison was opened, the poisonous powder instantly floated into the air. The man did not expect this to happen so suddenly. When he finally regained his senses, he felt his vision darken. Bailey Hongzhuang dragged the man into her prison cell, before removing the key from his waist. Once the chains were unlocked, Bailey Hongzhuang heaved a sigh of relief. She felt that the feeling of being imprisoned had finally disappeared. Master, what do we do now? Xiaohe looked nervously at Bailey Hongzhuang. Their powers alone were not enough to break out of here. What's more, they were severely injured. Temporarily hiding in the chaos ring was fine. But where was the chaos ring? Bailey Hongzhuang took out the healing medicine and fed it to Xiaohei before handing the key to Xiaohei. Go and release the others from the water dungeon. The scale of this water prison was not small. Along the way, she noticed that there were many people imprisoned here. Although they didn't know what crime these people had committed, they could only gather everyone's strength in this situation. As long as she could break out of this water prison, she would find a way to sneak out of Enchanting sect. Upon hearing Bailey Hongzhuang's words, Xiaohei immediately understood and stood up abruptly. The pain on its body made it grimace. Looking at the unconscious man beside her, Bailey Hongzhuang also felt a little apologetic. This person had no enmity with her, and she did not want to implicate him. But there was no other way. All this time, just in case, she had sewed a very small poison bag into her clothes. Even if someone checked, they would not be able to find it. Bailey Hongzhuang gave the man the antidote, and then knocked him out. His life was not in danger. Xiaohei's speed was also very fast. In a short period of time, he had opened several prison cells. In the end, he directly threw the key to one of the prisoners. Everyone in the water prison was overjoyed when they saw the door open. They had been locked up for a long time, and thought that they would never have the chance to leave this dark place. Who would have thought that they would suddenly have a glimmer of hope? Chapter 64:11. Although there were many of them, each of them was obviously seriously injured. It was obvious that they had been imprisoned in the water prison for a long time. Almost after everyone was released, they didn't say anything at all, and immediately rushed out. Let's rush out. Let's leave this damn place. Looking at the people rushing forward quickly, Bailey Hongzhuang sighed. At this time, these people did not have the slightest idea of discussing a countermeasure. Even if they could break out of the water prison, they could not break out of the Enchanting sect. The restrictions of the sect were not a joke. In addition, the scale of the Enchanting sect was not small. They would probably be caught soon after they rushed out. Master, let's rush out too, Xiaohei said. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. At this moment, she could only rush out. Once we rush out, the people of the Enchanting sect should soon receive the news and rush over. At that time, I will hide in the chaos ring. You will shrink your body and hide in the soil with the chaos ring. Do you understand? Master, don't worry. I understand. Xiaohei replied seriously. Okay, let's rush out. Outside the water prison. Why do you think Lingchuan hasn't come out after so long? Could it be that he's really taken a fancy to that girl? Don't joke. How could Lingchuan have such courage? Just as the 6 of them were joking, they suddenly heard a burst of hurried footsteps coming out of the water prison. Then, they saw all the prisoners in the water prison rushing out. Someone is escaping. Someone is escaping. The 6 people's expressions changed, and they immediately cried out in alarm. Quickly close the door. We must not let them escape. The 6 people looked flustered and quickly closed the door. However, how could the escaping people let them do as they wished? They all quickened their pace and stopped the door from closing. The strength of the 6 people naturally could not be compared with the strength of more than 20 people. In a short period of time, the door was directly rushed open, and the 6 people also took a few steps back. Lingchuan is probably crazy, right? What on earth did he do in there? Now is not the time to think about this. Quickly stop them. Otherwise, once they escape, we will all suffer. Bailey Hongzhuang was in the middle of the group and ran out quickly. The disciples were shocked when they saw that Bailey Hongzhuang was clearly seriously injured, but could still run so fast at this moment. As expected of the woman who could kill Guoshaojia, she was indeed different from ordinary women. Stop. If you don't stop, then don't blame us for being impolite. The man held a sword in his hand and shouted. However, no one paid any attention. Everyone ran forward as if they had gone crazy. Bang, bang, bang. A chaotic battle ensued. Some of the cultivators were subdued right away, while more of them were still trying to escape. Bailey Hongzhuang took advantage of the chaos to rush forward, gathering all her strength under her feet. The farther she was from this place, the safer she would be. Someone. Soon, Bailey Hongzhuang noticed that there were auras rapidly approaching her from all directions. She immediately hid in the chaos ring. Xiaohei quickly shrunk her body and rolled around in the mud. Her white fur was completely covered in mud before she hugged the chaos ring and burrowed into the mud. Chapter 64:12. Bang! 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 The sounds of battle quickly spread and terrifying waves of air swept out. After Xiaohei hid the chaos ring deep in the soil, she also hid in the chaos ring. These guys from the immortal region were not weak, and their ability to detect auras was terrifying. Even if she hid here, who knew when her aura would be detected and she would be done for? Not only would their location be exposed, even the secret of the chaos ring would be discovered. Xiaohei, how's it going outside? I only know that they've already started fighting, but I don't know what's going on. I don't dare to release my aura. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. I'm afraid that most of those people will be captured, but I don't know if any of them will be lucky enough to escape. She didn't know what kind of people were locked up in the water prison, but based on Elder Guo's appearance, there might be many wronged people inside. If they could escape, it would be a great blessing. But if they couldn't, then they could only accept their fate. Since we've already hidden here, then let's stay here for a while. Bailey Hongzhuang pondered. These 2 days, the entire Enchanting sect will be searching for us. Once we appear, it's very likely that we'll be discovered. After 2 days, when the intensity of the search lessens, we'll try to see if we can escape. Fortunately, she and Xiaohei were captured together. With Xiaohei's ability to change her size, as long as they were careful, they could take the opportunity to sneak back into the abandoned immortal forest. Yes, Xiaohei nodded. Staying here was much better than facing that old man Guosheng. Come, I'll help you bandage your wounds first. Bailey Hongzhuang took out the herbs and waved at Xiaohei. In order to protect her, Xiaohei's white fur was almost dyed red with blood. Now that it was stained with mud, if it wasn't cleaned up quickly, it would be very troublesome if it got infected. After dealing with her injuries, Bailey Hongzhuang took off her blood-stained clothes and immediately sat down to meditate and heal her injuries. Given their strength, they weren't a match for the cultivators of the immortal realms. Since they still had time, they might as well conserve their combat strength as much as possible. When Guosheng found out that Bailey Hongzhuang had disappeared, he was furious. Today's incident was very strange. Almost at the first moment he heard the news, he felt that this matter was very likely related to Bailey Hongzhuang. Previously, the water prison had been safe and sound. Bailey Hongzhuang had just arrived, and something like this had happened. It would be strange if it had nothing to do with her. A bunch of trash. If you can't even keep an eye on one person, what's the use of having you? Ling Chuan and the others knelt on the ground nervously, their faces pale. This disciple has failed in his task. Elder, please punish me. You guys hurry up and find Bailey Hongzhuang. Guosheng waved his hand, and the anger on his face couldn't be more obvious. As for Ling Chuan, you can go plant rice fields for the time being. Don't appear in front of me again. Ling Chuan's body shook, and his face instantly turned pale. Guarding the water prison was actually a very good job. He had spent a lot of effort to get this job with great difficulty. Now that he had been reprimanded by the elder, not only had he lost this good job, it would be difficult for him to stand out in the future. When he thought of this, his heart was filled with despair. Chapter 64:13. With the help of the seniors, Di Beichen and the others still found the stall owner, who disappeared, even though the stall owner fled very quickly. Although the stall owner was unwilling to speak frankly, under the pressure of the seniors, he didn't dare to not tell the truth. He immediately told them everything that had happened before. After listening to all this, Di Beichen and the others' hearts sank. They never thought that all of this was caused by the Enchanting sect. It seems that this Elder Guo is really a ruthless person. Meng Buchuan snorted coldly, and a trace of coldness appeared in his eyes. Shangguan Yingying was a little confused. Didn't you say that it's impossible for that elder to know that this matter has something to do with us? Gua Xiaojie must be dead. In order to find you, he even disregarded Gua Xiaojie's life. Zhongli Xiaoran's heart was as clear as a mirror. Although he knew this method, he always thought that his grandfather, who rarely doted on his grandson, would do such a thing. What's more, according to Gua Xiaojie's previous performance, this elder Gua should be extremely doting on him. But he didn't expect the situation to be completely different. Then what should we do now? Bailey Yunyan was anxious. If Hong Zhuang is caught in the immortal domain, how can we go to the immortal domain to save her? At this time, Di Beichen looked at the 5 seniors and bowed deeply. His expression was unprecedentedly serious. Seniors, I hope you can help. He must save Hong Zhuang. However, how to enter the immortal domain was indeed a big problem. Hearing this, Grandma Hua nodded and said, Hong Zhuang is my disciple. I naturally won't let anything happen to her. This elder of the Xianqing sect, I think he's tired of living. Yu Hong's eyes flashed with a trace of coldness. His face no longer had the usual joking expression. On the contrary, there was a terrible ruthlessness. This expression was very unfamiliar to everyone. It was the first time they saw Senior Yu show such an expression. Bailey Hongzhuang stayed in the Chaos Ring for 3 days in a row. Only then did she consider whether to go outside to take a look. 3 days was enough for the people of the Xianqing sect to search every place. Xiaohei quietly came out of the Chaos Ring. After the hair all over her body was stained with mud, she had completely turned into a ball of mud. No one would notice her lying on the grass. It's strange to say that the woman caught by Elder Gua seemed to have disappeared into thin air. We've searched every corner of the sect, but we couldn't find her figure. It's said that the reason why this happened this time is because of her. Is really not simple. Lingchuan is miserable. Was Bailey Hongzhuang narrowed her eyes. Guosheng gave us such a big gift, we have to return it to him no matter what. But master, we're much weaker than him. Once we're discovered, I'm afraid it'll be very troublesome. Chapter 64:14. The disciples of Xianqing sect might not be able to notice their presence, but Guosheng might be able to. Let's be careful. I'm afraid that Guosheng is also looking for us. Maybe he's not at his residence. This is a good opportunity for us. Her ink-black phoenix eyes flashed with a fierce light. An eye for an eye, a tooth for a tooth, had always been her style of doing things. She had cultivated for so many years, but this was the first time she had encountered such a situation. If she didn't return the favor with a big gift, she wouldn't be able to live with it. Then I'll go that way. Xiaohei actually couldn't swallow this anger. That old man was too despicable and shameless. Because they had already been there before, Xiaohei still remembered the route clearly. Along the way it was very careful. Once someone passed by, it would immediately stop. During this process, they also learned about the current situation from the discussions of some cultivators. Master, that Elder Gua really doesn't seem to be at Changmei Peak. Xiaohei sighed in relief. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes turned slightly. He wanted to use us as bait. Now that we've run away, he must be very unwilling. Chapter 64:15. Master, should we go now or wait? Xiaohei asked through voice transmission. Let's go into the Chaos Ring first. We'll come out later. Be careful not to expose our auras. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was grave. Guosheng was not a kind person. After returning, the first thing he would do was to investigate the auras of the surroundings. Once they were discovered, the consequences would be disastrous. Ever since she came into contact with the strange chains, she understood that there were many things in the immortal region that were beyond their knowledge. If she underestimated them, she would be the one consigned to eternal damnation. Xiaohei did not dare to delay. After hiding the Chaos Ring, she disappeared from the spot. Just as Xiaohei and Bailey Hongzhuang hid in the ring, several auras appeared on Changmei Peak. Elder Gua, it's strange. We rushed over at a much faster speed that day. Most of the fugitives have been caught. Only Bailey Hongzhuang seems to have disappeared into thin air. Medicine Master Ji's expression was complicated. Logically speaking, she doesn't know anyone in our Xianqing sect. It shouldn't be possible for a disciple to protect her. Hearing this, Guosheng snorted coldly. The malicious light in his eyes was as dark as the night. I don't know what kind of seductive tricks that bitch used. Perhaps she has already bewitched a disciple. When have we ever heard of such a thing happening in the water prison? I don't know if Ling Chuan let her out on purpose. Medicine Master Ji and the two accompanying disciples were silent. They had seen Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance before. If such a beautiful woman used her skills, ordinary disciples would not be able to escape. Then what should we do now? Medicine Master Ji frowned. We've already searched everywhere. We even checked the disciples' residences. There's no trace of her at all. Continue to investigate. Guosheng's expression was fierce. Even if a disciple is protecting her, she will be exposed sooner or later. You two go and send me a message. Before Bailey Hongzhuang is found, the search is not allowed to stop. Yes. The disciple received the order, and then quickly left Changmei Peak, as if he had been granted amnesty. Ever since Guo Xiaojie had fallen, they had been on tenterhooks by the elder's side every day, deeply afraid that the slightest carelessness might cause them to be punished. After the two of them left, Guosheng asked, "How's the situation at the Immortal Domain's entrance?" There's still no news at the moment. No matter how fast they investigate, it's impossible for them to arrive so quickly. Guosheng's tone changed as a trace of doubt appeared between his brows. Elder Guo, why are you so sure that they will definitely come? For an abandoned person to forcefully barge into the Immortal Region's gates, only death awaits them. Guosheng's eyes narrowed as a ruthless glint flashed across them. Who hasn't done that when they were young? These fellows clearly know that Xiaojie is my grandson, yet they still dare to lay their hands on him. Could it be that they lack courage? Even if they don't dare to barge through the gates of the celestial region, they will definitely be loitering around nearby. This time, as long as they dare to come, I'll make sure they don't return. Hearing this, Medicine Master Ji nodded slightly. I'll keep an eye on the situation outside the Immortal Region's gates. The moment someone approaches, I'll inform you, Elder. You must be tired these past 2 days. Go in and have a cup of tea first. Guosheng's expression eased a little, and then he smiled faintly. Chaos Ring. Master, if that detestable Elder Guo returns, will he fall into the trap? Chapter 64:16. Master had spent so much effort to set up this trap. Even if Guosheng was extremely powerful, he would still fall for it. After all, poison masters were not people that ordinary people were willing to offend. This was because this method was simply impossible to guard against. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her phoenix eyes. It might take a little while, but the situation should be very exciting. She did not place the poison in the easiest place to be discovered. Instead, she placed it in a place that was not easy to detect. This was based on the reverse thinking that Granny had taught her. Any cultivator who could ascend to the Immortal Domain would have gone through countless trials and tribulations. They were very experienced in dealing with people. Furthermore, with Guosheng's annoying personality, there would be many people who would want to deal with him on a daily basis. They would definitely be on guard against him. Then will it be safe for us to stay here? Xiao He was a little worried. Should we go somewhere else to hide? No need. Bailey Hongzhuang waved her hand. Her deep and beautiful eyes were filled with wisdom. The most dangerous place is the safest place. Apart from Guosheng and his disciples, there is no one else on Changmei Peak. He is extremely familiar with this place, and will not place too much focus here. The aura of the Chaos Ring is negligible. Moreover, it is hidden in the soil. Guosheng will not be able to find us. The only thing we need to take note of is that we cannot go out too early. Otherwise, if the timing is not right, we will be finished. As she spoke, a trace of helplessness appeared on her delicate and beautiful face. Ever since she started cultivating, she had spent most of her time fighting head-on. There were not many times where she had to hide like this. However, these people were so powerful. Apart from taking the opportunity to launch a sneak attack, she had no other choice. Hearing this, Xiao He nodded slightly. Then we will stay here with peace of mind. Bailey Hongzhuang rebandaged the external injuries and applied some medicine. The effects of the immortal herbs in the immortal domain are indeed extraordinary. Previously, the injuries were so serious. Now they have recovered by more than half. If they were originally heavily injured, their efficiency would be greatly reduced. However, based on the current situation, their injuries should be more or less healed in just one more day. Just as Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao He were calmly discussing countermeasures in the Chaos Ring, Changmei Peak of Xianqing sect was extremely lively. Because Changmei Peak had exploded, since Guosheng began to search for Bailey Hongzhuang in Xianqing sect. Even some disciples who were in seclusion were alarmed. Therefore, this period of time could be said to be the most lively days in Xianqing sect. In an instant, everyone felt that the earth was shaking. It was as if the entire Xianqing sect was shaking. Only then did everyone realize that Elder Guo's residence, Changmei Peak, had actually exploded without them noticing. In an instant, Changmei Peak, one of the 13 peaks, was directly shaved off by the explosion. The upper half of the peak was directly raised to the ground. Sand flew everywhere. The bare surface revealed the color of the soil. Where was its usual evergreen appearance? Oh my God! Am I seeing things? Changmei Peak was blown up? What the hell is going on? How did it suddenly become like this? Chapter 64-17. Bailey Hongzhuang was famous. The entire Xianqing sect was alarmed by the explosion of Changmei Peak. When the elders arrived, they saw Guosheng in a sorry state. Where was the sage-like demeanor he usually had? Not only were his clothes tattered, even his beard had been burned off. Dirt and dust fell on his body, staining his clothes with blood. He was in a sorry state. Most importantly, his face was pale, and he stood stiffly on the spot, as if he couldn't believe what had just happened. Elder Guo, what's going on? Why did your Changmei Peak explode all of a sudden? Could it be that your enemies are here to seek revenge? Faced with the elder's questions, Guosheng just stood there expressionlessly and didn't answer a single question. With such a big commotion, even the sect master, who was in seclusion, was shocked out of his seclusion. After seeing this scene, he couldn't help but say, Elder Guo, you don't have to hide it anymore. Everyone is concerned about you with good intentions. Why don't you answer? Originally, everyone thought that Guosheng didn't want to pay attention to the matter because it was too embarrassing. However, when the sect master took the initiative to ask, Elder Guo still ignored him. This was a little strange. The sect master was displeased and asked Medicine Master Ji, who was in a slightly better situation than the elders. Medicine Master Ji, speak. Medicine Master Ji looked at the sect master and used almost all his strength to squeeze out a word from his teeth. Poison. What did you say? The sect master frowned. Although the scale of the explosion wasn't small, with Elder Guo and Medicine Master Ji's strength, it shouldn't be a big problem. Now that these two fellows looked so strange, what exactly was the problem? The elders at the side were also puzzled. Could it be that there was some secret between Elder Guo and Medicine Master Ji that couldn't be said? Guosheng tried his best to make faces. He was about to go crazy with anger. He never thought that Bailey Hongzhuang would have the guts to come to his Changmei Peak at a time like this. At this moment, when he recalled everything that had happened, he only felt that he had fallen into a dream. It was a complete disaster. With his cultivation, how could this ordinary explosion do anything to him? But right before the explosion, he was poisoned. This strange poison caused his body to gradually become numb, greatly reducing his reaction speed. If Apothecary Ji hadn't discovered the poison at the first moment, and the two of them hadn't immediately consumed the antidote, they might have really lost their lives by now. However, this poison was no ordinary poison. Medicine Master Ji's antidote could only temporarily save her life, but the numbness was only getting worse. In this short period of time, he was only able to move his eyes. When the sect leader saw Guosheng and Medicine Master Ji's behavior, he was somewhat annoyed. These two fellows were truly audacious. They didn't even listen to his words. Elder Guo, what happened to your eyes? One of the elders looked at Elder Guo in confusion. He felt that Elder Guo was a little too funny. At such a serious moment, Elder Guo began to wink at him. Could it be that he had become as stupid as his grandson? Hearing this, Guosheng was simply about to vomit blood. You idiots, can't you see that I've been poisoned? After a long while, one of the elders finally realized that this matter was really strange and couldn't help but ask, Sect Master, could Elder Guo and the others have been poisoned? Chapter 64:18. After an alchemist examined Guosheng and Alchemist Ji's condition, he said, reporting to the sect leader, Elder Guo and Alchemist Ji have indeed been poisoned. This poison has a paralyzing effect, so they can't speak at all. Hearing this, everyone suddenly realized and the displeasure in their hearts dissipated a little. Then quickly detoxify Elder Guo and the others. The sect leader sighed. He didn't expect this to be the reason. The dignified Xianqing sect's elders have been reduced to this state. How shameful. Sect leader, this poison is very strange. It's not an ordinary poison. The alchemist looked troubled. I'm afraid I'll need some time to study it. Once these words were spoken, the sect leader and the other elders were once again stunned. Their eyes were filled with astonishment. This poison is actually so complicated. This poison is indeed not simple. It's definitely not the work of an ordinary alchemist. Otherwise, Alchemist Ji wouldn't have been reduced to this state. Everyone looked at each other. This was the truth. Alchemist Ji's medical skills were among the best in the entire sect. Now that he and Elder Guo have been reduced to this state, they can't be underestimated. Sect leader, it seems this matter is not simple. This person has such a method. If Alchemist Ji wasn't here, I'm afraid Elder Guo would have lost his life. What the hell is going on? The sect leader's face was ashen. Who was so arrogant that they dared to come to their sect and commit crimes? They even raised Elder Guo's long plum peak to the ground. This was a slap in the face. Seeing this, the other elders recounted the events that had happened earlier. After knowing that the root of all this was related to Guo Xiaojie, the sect leader frowned. Previously, when Guo Xiaojie was in the sect, he had already turned a blind eye. He didn't think that after Guo Xiaojie's death, something like this would happen. Sect leader, I'm afraid this woman is not simple. The first elder's expression was serious. All the cultivators who escaped from the prison have been captured. Only this woman is missing. We originally thought she had taken the opportunity to escape. We didn't think that not only did she not escape, she even dared to return to Long Plum Peak. If we don't capture her, I'm afraid there will be more trouble. The faces of the other elders also changed. They didn't put a young lady in their eyes at all. However, after today's incident, they realized that the girl's power was beyond their expectations. I give the order to immediately search the sect for this woman. The sect leader said sternly, if such a thing happened in the Xianqing sect, once it spread out, it would simply be a joke to the other sects. Yes, for a time, the entire Xianqing sect was on high alert. The patrolling disciples searched everywhere, and the elders competed with each other. As long as they could find Bailey Hongzhuang, they would be rewarded. In such an environment, everyone seemed to have been injected with chicken blood as they searched everywhere. Once he found it, not only would he be able to obtain a generous reward, he would also be able to gain the recognition of the elders. Perhaps he might even be able to achieve a meteoric rise in his career. At the same time, in private conversations, everyone was full of admiration for Bailey Hongzhuang. I heard that Elder Guo's poison hasn't been cured yet. He's really in trouble this time. Chapter 64:19. As the search grew longer and longer, the discussions became more and more widespread. I heard that this girl came from the abandoned immortal forest, and is an abandoned person, but I really admire her methods. The entire sect has been searched, but there is no news of her at all. Do you think she has already left? I heard that there are many cultivators guarding the gate. If she left, it's impossible that no one saw her. For a time, Bailey Hongzhuang had become a mystery in the eyes of the cultivators of the Xianqing sect. From the beginning to the end, they couldn't understand how she did all this. Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiao He simply stayed in the chaos ring for a day. Early the next morning, Xiao He ran out of the chaos ring. Where is this? Xiao He was shocked to find that the place she was at now was not the place where she was hiding yesterday. Xiao He, what's wrong? Bailey Hongzhuang couldn't see the situation outside, and could only communicate with Xiao He through voice transmission. Master, we are no longer at the original location. Blackie looked around carefully, only to discover that the original Changmei Peak had been razed to the ground at some point, and the chaos ring was mixed in the soil. Bailey Hongzhuang also wanted to know the situation outside. Even though she had changed her appearance to Ling Chuan's, she didn't have the service of a disciple of the Xianqing sect. If she came out like this, she would immediately be suspected. Xiao He hugged the chaos ring and rolled forward. When she saw a cultivator who was alone, she directly drugged him. After Bailey Hongzhuang came out, she directly took off the other party's outer clothes and put them on in the chaos ring. Only then did she walk out openly. Xiao He directly went into Bailey Hongzhuang's arms and looked around vigilantly. Master, the entire Xianqing sect is looking for you now. There are also layers of guards in front of the gate. I'm afraid it will be very difficult to get out. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. She was also aware of this situation. If she wanted to escape, she would have to find an opportunity. At this moment, a voice suddenly sounded from behind her. Who is it? Bailey Hongzhuang's expression suddenly changed. She slowly turned around and saw an unfamiliar Xianqing sect disciple. When the man saw Bailey Hongzhuang, he smiled and said, Ling Chuan, why are you here? Seeing that the other party did not recognize her, Bailey Hongzhuang breathed a sigh of relief and said, I just came here to take a look. Do you know how Elder Gui is? You don't know. The man was a little surprised, but then he smiled and said, although you've been punished to work in the spirit fields recently, you're still too out of touch with the news. The poison that Elder Gui was poisoned with this time is not simple. All the pharmacists in the sect are discussing countermeasures together. I don't know the final result. The man put one hand on Bailey Hongzhuang's body and had a mysterious smile on his face. By the way, tell me honestly, did you deliberately let Bailey Hongzhuang leave that day? How could it be on purpose? Bailey Hongzhuang quickly said, I was poisoned. The man nodded in understanding. So that's the case. I heard that the girl was extremely beautiful. I thought you were confused by her, so you deliberately let her go. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang's lips twitched slightly. These guys' imagination was really amazing. They even came up with such a reason. Chapter 64:20. Speaking of which, it's strange. I really don't understand how that woman did all this. So many of us have been looking for her everywhere, but we haven't been able to find any trace of her. The man frowned. The rewards given by the elders are very generous. If we can find her, perhaps even the sect master will reward us. You're now being punished to plant in the spirit field. If you can find that woman, then you'll definitely be able to atone for your crimes. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly with a serious expression on her face. I've made up my mind to find her. Otherwise, I don't know how long I'll have to stay in the spirit field. The man smiled faintly. Good luck. However, his expression clearly showed that he didn't think Ling Chuan would be able to find her. It wasn't until the man left that Bailey Hongzhuang understood the situation of the Xianqing sect. I didn't expect Guosheng's luck to be so good. He actually didn't die. Bailey Hongzhuang frowned slightly. Her previous plan was already very perfect, but she didn't expect Medicine Master Ji to appear. This Medicine Master Ji's ability was also very good. As a medicine master, he was almost instinctively aware of the existence of the poison, which was why he took the antidote pill immediately. Master, no matter what, we've taken back the interest. Xiao Hei's eyes revealed a trace of relief. Although she couldn't directly kill Guosheng, she could still vent her anger by making him become like this. Guosheng must be furious now. He's an elder of the main peak. Now that the main peak has been directly blown up, he can't even say a word. Haha. Hearing this, Bailey Hongzhuang smiled. As an elder, face was also extremely important. This matter caused Guosheng to lose all face, and he had already become a joke among the group of elders. Just from the man's description, it could be understood that because of this matter, everyone's trust in Guosheng was greatly reduced. It seemed that even the sect master felt that this matter was extremely embarrassing. This Guosheng is not a good person. Over the years, who knows how many people have been abused by him. Bailey Hongzhuang raised her phoenix eyes slightly. I don't think this guy's popularity is very good. The others are probably waiting to be laughed at. Master, can they cure the poison? Xiaohe was a little curious. Initially, it did not know how strong its master's poison was. However, after such a long time, the poison on Guosheng and the others had not been neutralized. It seemed that its master's poison was not that easy to neutralize. Bailey Hongzhuang pondered and shook her head. I'm not too sure, but from this point, I can see that Granny's medical skills are much better than theirs. Her mother-in-law was an expert in many kinds of poisons. The poison she used this time was only one of the poisons that her mother-in-law had taught her. There were many other poisons that she had yet to learn how to concoct. On one hand, it was because his current cultivation was not high enough. On the other hand, it was also because the place where they lived did not have the required poisonous herbs, so it was not equipped. If she had brought that poison with her when she came out this time, Guosheng would probably have become a ghost by now. Now, the entire Xianqing sect is looking for us. Even the elders are alarmed. We should stay here for the time being. It won't be too late for us to leave after this storm has passed. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes flashed with a serious light. Although this matter was mainly about Guosheng's face, in fact, the entire Xianqing sect had lost face. Chapter 64-21. After deciding not to leave for the time being, Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiaohe slowly walked forward. With Ling Chuan's identity, no one would notice them. The effect of the illusory grass was still very good. They wouldn't be discovered for a while. Xiaohe, let's just find a place where there are no people and stay for a while. Bailey Hongzhuang looked around. The reason why she wandered around with Ling Chuan's face was to understand the situation here. This was the first time she had come into contact with the sects in the immortal region. After observing, she found that the sects in the immortal region were not much different from the upper realm, or even the lower realm. However, many things here were of a higher level. It was obvious that they were of a higher level than the upper realm. Master, why don't we go to the spirit field to take a look? Xiaohe's eyes lit up. Because of Ling Chuan, they had already heard of the spirit field several times. What exactly was planted in the spirit field? Master, do we still need to farm in this sect? Xiaohe was in disbelief. Even in the lower realm, although cultivators had to take on some chores, no one would do this kind of farming. When it thought that cultivators who ascended to the immortal region actually had to farm, it felt a little unbelievable. Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix-like eyes raised slightly. She was actually a little curious about this. She had never been to the immortal region before. Granny Hua and the others ate very casually. The rice they ate now was all bought from the upper realm. The rice planted by immortal cultivators should be different, right? Since you're interested, then let's go take a look. Bailey Hongzhuang smiled faintly. Xiaohe nodded excitedly. Okay. Originally, the human and beast were still a little confused about the environment of the Xianqing sect. However, Ling Chuan's recent actions were too eye-catching. Therefore, whenever she appeared, there would always be people lamenting about her experience. Therefore, in a few words, Bailey Hongzhuang also clearly knew where the spirit field was. She even almost chatted with someone along the way. Fortunately, the people who traveled with her were not planting spirit fields. After a certain distance they separated. Master, look. That's the spiritual field. Xiaohe looked at the paddy fields in front of her, and her eyes were filled with shock. Large tracts of paddy fields were now showing signs of ripening. The golden ears of wheat were plump and full, looking very tempting. Bailey Hongzhuang sized up the ears of wheat in front of her. She only needed to sense a little before she realized that there was something different about this ear of wheat. This was because the ears of wheat were filled with spiritual energy. No wonder it's called a spiritual field. These rice paddies are all irrigated with spiritual energy. Bailey Hongzhuang had a look of understanding on her face. and she was looking forward to it. The immortal region was indeed different. Even this rice was completely different. Xiaohei swallowed her saliva greedily. Then the rice must taste really good. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. After eating this rice, it should be able to increase the strength of the cultivator. No wonder they are called immortals. This rice is no longer an ordinary item. If I have the chance, I really want to try it. Xiaohei's face was filled with anticipation. This kind of rice, not only it, but its master and the others had also never tasted it. If we can bring this rice back, Granny Hua, and the others will definitely be very happy. Noticing Xiaohei's eager gaze, Bailey Hongzhuang shook her head slightly and said, "That won't do." Chapter 64:22. Now that Lingchuan was assigned to guard the spirit field, if the spirit rice was lost, it would be very difficult for Lingchuan to gain a foothold in the Xianqing sect. Hearing this, Xiaohei's face immediately collapsed, and a strong sense of helplessness appeared on her face. It wasn't easy to see such a unique treasure, but she could only look at it and not eat it. It was too depressing. We can see if there's anything good in other places. If there's something you're interested in, we can also collect some interest. Since Guosheng captured them here, they naturally couldn't leave so easily. No matter what, they had to leave Guosheng an unforgettable gift. In any case, all the losses they caused now would fall on Guosheng's head. It was rare for them to come to the immortal region, so they had to bring back something interesting. Guosheng didn't expect that the bait he caught would be such a master who wanted to see the world in chaos. If he knew earlier, he would rather not take revenge than capture Bailey Hongzhuang. Unfortunately, there was no medicine for regret in this world. No matter how regretful he was, it was useless. Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiaohei walked forward, and found that in addition to rice, there were also fruits and vegetables. Unsurprisingly, these fruits and vegetables were all irrigated with spirit qi, and emitted a charming fragrance. At a glance, they only felt that it was completely different from the fruits and vegetables they usually came into contact with. The aura emitted by it was very similar to the heavenly treasures they usually saw. Although the aura of these fruits and vegetables was slightly weaker, they were just the most ordinary food. It was really surprising that there was such a change. If these weren't fruits and vegetables, but some real medicinal treasures, then the effect should be very amazing. At this moment, Bailey Hongzhuang finally understood why there were so many heavenly treasures in the immortal region. It was because the heavenly treasures here were not only naturally grown, but also artificially grown. "Master, eating these things should be very beneficial, right?" Xiaohei asked curiously. Bailey Hongzhuang's lips curled into a playful smile. "Although I don't know what effect it has, since it grew in this kind of spirit qi, there must be an effect." "Master, then we..." Xiaohei's eyes narrowed as he smiled. His eyes were filled with craftiness. Bailey Hongzhuang's phoenix eyes narrowed slightly. The human and beast's expressions were surprisingly similar. "Normally, we don't have many ingredients. Now that we've seen so many, how can we waste them?" Now that almost all the cultivators were looking for Bailey Hongzhuang, no one thought that she would hide here. After observing for a while, she found that there was no one else here at all. This was obviously a great opportunity. The man and the beast immediately began to move. Bailey Hongzhuang was mainly in charge of plucking, while Xiaohei was in charge of keeping watch. However, when she was on the lookout, Xiaohei would also pick some of them. When she saw some fruits that she liked, she immediately stuffed them into her mouth. As soon as she ate them, Xiaohei's eyes lit up, and a blissful expression appeared on her face. "Master, this taste is very delicious." Seeing this, Bailey Hongzhuang chuckled. "You glutton, watch carefully. Don't let anyone discover you." Chapter 64:23. Bailey Hongzhuang walked along this road, and found that there were quite a lot of things planted by the Xianqing sect. Therefore, the human and beast directly put away the good things they saw. "Master, these fellows are really interesting. They all ran outside to surround you like a swarm of bees. When they come back and see this scene, it will definitely be very interesting." Xiaohei looked at the bare tree trunks behind them, and her eyes were full of smiles. However, they didn't pick all of them. They only picked some ripe ones. As for the unripe ones, they didn't waste them. This planting work must be the task of the outer sect disciples. These disciples usually receive the least cultivation resources. As long as they catch me, not only will they receive generous rewards, but they will also be rewarded by the elders. They might even be able to become inner sect disciples. If it were you, what would you do? Bailey Hongzhuang raised her eyebrows slightly. Her eyes had already explained everything. Xiaohei nodded. Indeed, it's rare to have such an opportunity to soar to the sky. No one will give it up. However, none of them would have thought that we would be here. Speaking of which, this Xianqing sect's resource room must have a lot of treasures. Bailey Hongzhuang fell into deep thought. The resource room of every sect must have a lot of precious treasures. Moreover, this was a sect in the immortal realm. Although the Xianqing sect's level wasn't high among the many sects in the immortal realm, and could only be said to be a small sect, it must have a lot of resources. Xiaohei was stunned and couldn't help but open her mouth wide. She said in disbelief, "Master, you're not thinking of robbing the resource room, are you?" Her master was too bold. It seemed that she still couldn't compare to her master. Indeed, I have this idea. Bailey Hongzhuang thought seriously. Right now the entire Xianqing sect is in chaos. However, the guard of the resource room has always been the strictest. I'm afraid it won't be easy for us to rob it. Even if these elders were alarmed, no one would expect them to have the idea of running to the resource room. However, the people in the resource room shouldn't have left. If we can really bring back all the things in the resource room, that would be great. Xiaohei's eyes were filled with anticipation. However, Master, we have to think about this in the long run. Just based on what they were doing now, the entire Xianqing sect would definitely be angered to death by them. Once they were discovered, their fate would be worse than falling into Guosheng's hands. I understand. Bailey Hongzhuang's expression was calm. At least, we have to ensure that we won't appear in the same place as him. Otherwise, we will really be exposed. Thinking of this, the man and the beast picked all the fruits in the field and slowly returned to the spirit field. The area of the spirit field is not small, so Ling Chuan shouldn't be the only one looking after it. We can look around and see if he's there. Bailey Hongzhuang looked around. With a glance, she found several residences. Little Black slipped into the house like a wisp of smoke. Originally, it thought that it would be very difficult to confirm the identity of the disciples, but it did not expect that the door plate actually had the name of each disciple and the spiritual field they belonged to. In this way, it became very easy to find Ling Chuan. Chapter 64-24. Looking at the words Ling Chuan written on the door plate, Xiaohei found that there was no aura inside. So she simply sneaked into the house to take a look. Ling Chuan was really not inside. It seems that Ling Chuan should have gone out to look for opportunities, as Master said. After Bailey Hongzhuang heard Xiaohei's answer, she couldn't help but frown. In this way, we can't determine the location of Ling Chuan. Master, why don't we just stay here and wait for Ling Chuan to come back? Xiaohei asked. Bailey Hongzhuang nodded slightly. We can only do this for now. I hope he can come back soon. Otherwise, once someone finds out that the spiritual field here is lost, the guard of the resource room will become much stricter, and we won't be able to do anything. Xiaohei's eyes dimmed a little. If she didn't have the chance to do such an interesting thing, it would indeed be a pity. However, Bailey Hongzhuang and Xiaohei's luck was obviously good. It didn't take long for Ling Chuan to return. After noticing that Ling Chuan returned to the house and didn't come out for a while, Xiaohei informed Bailey Hongzhuang. I think Ling Chuan looks quite disappointed. He probably won't go out again today. Bailey Hongzhuang's eyes lit up slightly, and the corners of her lips raised a sly smile. In that case, let's go to the resource room to take a look. The location of the Xianqing sect's resource room was not difficult to find. Bailey Hongzhuang spent a little time to find it. Even though many disciples were looking for her now, there were still a lot of people in the resource room, and they were shuttling back and forth. Master, there are so many people here. I'm afraid it's not easy for us to do it. Xiaohei looked around. Wanting to do something to the resource room, under the eyes of so many people, was simply courting death. Don't worry, let's look around now. Bailey Hongzhuang was calm. No matter when, the resource room was always the most lively place in the sect. She had already expected this to happen. But she would have to think of a way to deal with it, after she understood the situation. As there were many cultivators heading to the resource room, Bailey Hongzhuang's appearance did not attract much attention. She wandered around inside. What she was interested in was not the resources of each disciple, but the natural treasures that could be exchanged with points. These things were often the most precious. Even if they couldn't take much, it would definitely be beneficial to everyone's strength. As she wandered around, many cultivators would come here to check the points required for the items they wanted to exchange. However, most of them could only sigh at their inadequacy. Apart from a few extremely outstanding disciples, it was not easy for others to gather enough points. After understanding the situation in the resource room, Bailey Hongzhuang came up with a plan. The effect of the disguise pill changed. Bailey Hongzhuang changed into the face of one of the cultivators he had seen before. Then, she quickly ran towards the front of the resource room. Everyone present could easily tell that he was in a state of extreme urgency. Noticing her actions, a cultivator who knew her couldn't help but ask, "What are you going to do in such a hurry?" Bailey Hongzhuang stopped. There was a trace of panic and nervousness on her face. She smiled and said, "Nothing. I just found that I left something behind, so I have to go back to get it." You're tuning in to the Li Mei Sword of Destiny YouTube channel. We're so grateful for your support. And don't forget to subscribe to join us on this incredible journey through captivating stories. Your generosity through donations truly makes a world of difference, as it's the primary source of revenue that allows me to expand and enhance this channel for you. Thank you from the bottom of my heart for being a part of this adventure.